Peace, Islam, LAOA, Chickamauga Alamassee-El, coming at y'all live, deep, deep, deep down, Alamassee Arabian country, deep in Arabia, deep in the turf, the holy turf. You know, we're in the compound. In the compound, it kind of became the war room, because understand, me, Sheekamauga Alamassee-El, my approach to the wisdom on this Moorish science is a little bit different from a lot of my counterparts and peers. You know, much respect and much props to them, you know what I'm saying? I've never been, like I said, I'll never claim to be no scholar. I'm not a master researcher, you know what I'm saying? I'm not a great Moorish adept. I'm no type of grand sheik, you know what I'm saying? Even though I'm well studied and well versed in Moorish science and the tenets and the doctrines laid down by Noble Drew Ali, you know, I'm more of a type of Moor that's going to deal more with practicality and logistics, dealing more in a real time sense of how we disperse this knowledge. Because I really want people to be able to take this knowledge. A lot of Mississippian people, I really want them to be able to take this knowledge and have it kind of be a revelation to you in real time and make you understand it in the current version, the sense of your life, your family members, and your immediate environment. I really like to break things down. I like to break a lot of this history down so it makes sense to you in your real time environment. So you can literally take from these drops, and the way I like to explain it to you, you know, as far as just reading between the lines and making it make sense, I like to explain it to you in a sense that you can literally look around in your immediate environment and see a lot of these things happening. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these historic events happening from a Moorish perspective, because again, the Moorish history of so-called America, so-called North America, was completely written out of history. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's only told from a settler type of dumbed down, slowed down English perspective. I mean, they literally got a whole version of this history written out of the history books in a lot of the schools and re-education type of situations that they try to give our people. So I really like to break a lot of this knowledge down, because this knowledge has already been broken down over and over again by many master teachers over the years. I mean, I can go, it's countless teachers, master teachers to name, you know what I'm saying? But one thing that a lot of the master teachers did, and I respect, because again, I can me personally, and a lot of other more learned Moors can actually pay attention to the more scholarly way of dispersing the information that a lot of these master teachers were able to, you know, their method of teaching over the years. They were a lot more scholarly and kind of dealing with a lecture hall type of presentation. You know, to more of a patient student of more science who can actually sit there and decipher and understand a complex, articulate type of vocabulary, and just really just sit there and try to break down the knowledge, piece it together, and go back it up with their own research. I'm one of those type of Moors where I can actually sit down and decipher a scholarly presentation, go back and do my own research and come up with my own understandings. You know what I'm saying? But everybody can't do that. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't have the time. Their mentalities are not as developed, so they don't really have the time to actually sit down and do a lot of a scholarly lecture, a scholarly Moorish presentation that a lot of the elders were, the method. There was really the method of a lot of the elders. You know what I'm saying? So I understood. Me personally, just for my style of dropping wisdom, I understand that void between the scholarly presentation and a more direct presentation that can make just a regular so-called nigga just get it and understand it real fast and take it and take it and kind of take the history and use it as an application in a practical application in your real time life. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of that's the method of teaching that I strive to give. I really want to make this history, this knowledge, this political understanding. You know what I'm saying? I really want to make a lot of this. I really want to make this a practical application in your life, so you can just take it and you'll get it. You know what I'm saying? Just in real time. Literally, I want you to be able to look at your mother, your father, your auntie, your uncle, your cousin. You know what I'm saying? And everything up your block, your street, your immediate environment, and I want you to be able to look at that and take this type of wisdom and it makes sense to you in your environment that you're in, your immediate environment that you're in. So you can just start looking at the buildings, the people around you, and say, okay, that makes sense. I understand how Moorish history could apply to my current situation. You know what I'm saying? I really want that. That's how I strive to give it to people. You know what I'm saying? And our people are naturally militant in their blood. So I like to take a militant type of stance in how I give the information, because that's really what's gonna make sense. Because again, the Mississippian people are militant blooded people. You know what I'm saying? Just naturally. So we like stuff. We like the information given to us raw and uncut. You know what I'm saying? The scholarly way is cool. You know what I'm saying? But that's more. That's more of a refined. That's more of a refined methodology of teaching, which is fine. But a lot of the Mississippian people are just, what I'm saying, we just trained to go just naturally in our blood. So we like it just given to us. We like it just like Soldier Slim, give it to a nigga raw. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how Mississippian people process information, and that's and that's actually an advanced frequency that a lot of these other nationalities can't really deal with. That's honestly why hip hop, so-called rap and hip hop, was, it took off so fast in Mississippian communities, because it was raw and uncut. It gave the knowledge to us. Our people gave the knowledge. The 5%ers, the gods, the Muslims, and everything gave the knowledge in a pure, uncut manner, and cats could just pick it up and run with it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I've heard a master teacher in the past say it was poor man's Moorish science, the early golden age hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Poor man's Moorish science. You know what I'm saying? Because that's exactly what it was. Give it to them raw. You know what I'm saying? And that's my methodology. I like to give it to you raw. You know what I mean? So you can understand. Now, there's nothing wrong with the scholars and the adepts and these very advanced learned Moors, but we're in a time period where we're in a time period kind of a dire straits, and honestly, the whole Moorish demonstration kind of needs a firmware upgrade anyway. So me personally, I strive to be very creative. You know what I'm saying? Very creative in the methodology. I used to be in the hip hop game myself, so you know what I'm saying, like just being able to break things down in rhythm and break things down rhythmically, and just in a raw, uncut way to the people. That's just my methodology, just through my experience in the world. You know what I'm saying? That's just my methodology. So, I mean, everybody got their roles to play. I'm more that renegade woodland militant. You know what I'm saying? So I like to just give it to you raw. You know what I'm saying? I want you to be able to understand it in a practical sense that makes sense to you and your immediate environment. That's just what Sheekamauga strive to do. You know what I'm saying? Also, on a side note, make sure y'all check out AlamasseePost.com. You know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all, this is a Talameka Fire shirt. I mean, it's hella shirts. It's hella gear. I call it the Woodland Renegade gear. You know what I'm saying? The Woodland look, because keep it a buck, man. A lot of y'all out here looking hella watered down to European, man. The way y'all dress out here, y'all really look ridiculous, man. Like, I'm a student of the 90s, and back in the day, man, cats used to match. They used to look real militant. I remember back in the 90s, cats was rocking fatigues, and so even like the Fat Farm and all that. I mean, that stuff was smooth. It was a lot. It was matching gear. But y'all out here these days is looking hella European and watered down with tight pants and Gucci belts and all. I mean, y'all really look retarded. You know what I'm saying? Just keep it a buck, man. But anyway, make sure y'all check out a lot of the make sure y'all check out Alamassee Post, and holler at me on the Renegade gear. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, again, the system needs a firmware update, because y'all out here, y'all are really lost, man. I always say this, man. Y'all are lost without the moles, man. For real, like y'all, it's like without the Moorish science, without the Moorish guides. That's really what our nation fell apart when the Moorish Mafia broke, when the Moorish essence, the Moorish faction of society, of American society, broke down in the really in the 1800s. That's really when our people just really went off the rails. You know what I'm saying? It's like daddy was gone and the household went to hell. You know what I'm saying? So, just trying to bring back some sense. And again, we want to do a firmware upgrade, bring the vibrancy back to the culture. You know what I'm saying? Because again, cats done ran off the rails. I don't know what y'all out here doing, man, but y'all look hella goofy. And I understand that they have, a lot of foreigners have come in, and that's why it's good you need to nationalize yourself and go by a national name, as opposed to just going by color, because y'all have had a lot of goofies from other places come in and classify themselves as that color. You know what I'm saying? And they infiltrated y'all culture. They infiltrated the so-called culture, and they done had a messed up influence. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, Mississippian people we were real stylish and we were real creative. I mean, people used to follow us. We were just the coolest thing walking on the planet. You know what I'm saying? But y'all done let all these Europeanized type of other people from other places come in and infiltrate just based on the fact that you identify yourself as a color, and these other people identify themselves as a color, so they can come in and infiltrate your culture, and they bring their European goofy style to you. You know what I'm saying? And now y'all out here looking like them, looking like straight goofies, man. I don't remember nobody in the 90s or the early 2000s or the 80s wearing tearing no tight pants. You already know they came from like the islands and stuff like that. Man, Mississippians don't dress like that, man. We always dressed in baggy clothes and smooth, with a smooth style for the most part. You know what I'm saying? So all this goofy European stuff, man, that stuff come from the foreign. That stuff do not come from here, man. But y'all, since y'all don't want to deal with a nationality and you just want to go by a colorable law, a color code, and the black codes and everything like that, you can have your, and again, these colorful designations are literally trademarked by the federal government. So literally, like if you're calling yourself a black or African American or any of this stuff, hell, even if you call yourself a Jamaican, even Jamaican is owned by the Queen of England. You know what I'm saying? So even y'all are walking around here looking like goofies. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all, like a lot of y'all from these islands and all these other places, y'all are classifying yourselves by terms that are literally owned by the Queen of England. So y'all look even more goofy, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? But to my Mississippians, you know what I'm saying? Like classifying yourself by color, like that's literally trademarked and owned by the federal government. So you will never have control of your communities by going by somebody else's trademark. You know what I'm saying? Like this just goofy. That's why Noble Drew Ali always talked about, he showed us how to have a free national name. Because a free national name has legal protections. It cannot be legally infiltrated. You can sue people. And honestly, you can go to war with people to protect your sovereignty. You know what I'm saying? And it's internationally recognized. That's why you got to understand international law. And free national names and stuff like that. That's the whole science of it. You can't have your state seized and put under foreign trusteeship and all that when you have a free national name. That's the science, man. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, in this particular drop, and this hits home for me personally, but in this particular drop, we're gonna talk about the mighty Chickamauga Tsalagi. You know what I mean? The Chickamauga Tsalagi Moors. I've been meaning to work on this drop for a long time. Because me personally, I was born, even though I spent the majority of my early years in Mecca, Chicago, I was actually born in a small mountain town in so-called Tennessee, Tunisia, Tunis. You know what I'm saying? In East Tennessee. So like that culture has always been a part of my DNA. That's just the holy lands of Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna talk about the Chickamauga Tsalagi. And the fact that they was Moors, you know what I'm saying? And they was, you know, and we're gonna talk about how gangster they were. And they was a part of the old Moorish Mafia of East Tennessee. So we're just gonna talk about the Chickamauga. And we also gonna talk about how the so-called Chickamauga, the Sheekamauga, they are the original Tsalagi from you know the area of so-called East Tennessee. And that was a straight up Muslim Islamic area. So I want y'all to understand that we're gonna drive this home. Tennessee, we just gonna talk about Tennessee, and by default, eastern, you know, western, so-called North Carolina, northwestern South Carolina, and all of that in Georgia. But Tennessee, for the record, so-called Tennessee is Tunis or Tunisia, the old Barbary state. Tennessee is Islamic. I'm gonna say that again. If you claim in Tennessee, Tennessee is Islamic. Okay, that is Muslim turf. So if you claim anything but being a Muslim and you claim in Tennessee, even though the so-called current spelling of Tennessee is owned by the so-called United States, but we dealing with holy domains when we breaking this down. We're gonna drive this home. Tennessee is Islam. You know what I'm saying? And you could also look at, we already know that we've been talking about how Tennessee is Tunis or Tunisia. You know what I'm saying? But literally, this is how you know that Tennessee is Islamic and it's Tunisia. Okay. Look at the current state of Tennessee flag, and then look at the flag of Tunisia. Literally, I mean, it's the same flag. You know, the flag of Tunisia right now has the star and the crescent with the circle in the middle, the white circle in the middle. And the flag of Tennessee has the blue circle in the middle with the 3 stars. You know what I'm saying? But that's the same flag. Now the Europeans, they know it's Tunisia. They know what's up. So when they made the flag of Tennessee, when they took over trusteeship of that area, and they had all these extraterritorial rights due to treaty. They can move around and create their own little corporate state. You know what I'm saying? They kept they had to hide the Islamic history of Tennessee, but they kept the same flag because these people understand you have to keep the same frequency of somewhere if you're gonna rule somewhere. You have to keep the frequency of the land somewhat. But literally, the flag of Tennessee looks just like the flag of Tunisia right now. The Tunisia over North, so-called North Africa right now. That's how you know it's the same state. It's the same Barbary state. But Tennessee is Muslim turf. You know what I'm saying? It always has been and always will be. It don't matter how many Europeans or how many Christians or how many of these people are there. They're in the current state of it. The first shall be last and last shall be first. Them East Tennessee holy mountains and their holy highlands and all of that, that's Islamic turf. It always will be. Chattanooga, Knoxville, all that. You know what I'm saying? That is Islamic turf. And we already know Memphis and all that, West Tennessee, all that whole area. We already know about that being my old Muslim turf. But we specifically today going to talk about East Tennessee and the old Moorish Muslim Mafia, the Tsalagi of East Tennessee, you know what I'm saying? North Georgia and Alabama and all that, you know what I'm saying? All Muslim turf, you know what I'm saying? The mighty Chickamauga, you know what I mean? So let's get into it. Now, just reading from the notes, of course, you know what I mean? Now, of course, we already talked about how Tennessee is old Tunis. It's Tunis. So historically, when they talk about the Barbary states of Tunisia and Tunis, the old version of the old Barbary state of Tunis or Tunisia is Tennessee, the current area of Tennessee. And this is how you know that Nashville is obviously like the old city of Carthage. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look at old pictures of Nashville, you see the Parthenon, you see all the old Carthaginian structures. A lot of them are knocked down now, but so-called Nashville is the old city of Carthage. And there's literally a small town right outside of Nashville called Carthage. And there's also a small city current city outside of Nashville called Lebanon. You know what I'm saying? Lebanon, Tennessee, and Carthage, Tennessee. Look them up. But they're already telling you right there. But it's more than likely the case that the historic old city of Carthage is Nashville, Tennessee, Tunis. You know what I'm saying? Keep it a buck. You know what I mean? So, and then, if you look at a map of North Africa right now, you got a Memphis in Egypt and you got a Tunis. And, you know what I'm saying? They're literally on the 33rd parallel, like on the 33rd parallel going across the same line. You know what I'm saying? Just like the proximity to so-called Nashville or Carthage and Memphis, Tennessee. It's the same line. That's how you can tell. That's how you can tell it was all set up just like it was. What was going on over there was a colony, and the same districts are set up that was going on over here. It's always been that way. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. So we're talking about the mighty Chickamauga. Now, one thing about the Chickamauga is we're gonna make the connections, and we're gonna understand the five, and we're gonna understand the old American culture of the 5 and the 6. You know what I'm saying? And the Chickamauga were obviously under the 5. You know what I'm saying? And again, they'll tell you this story if you know how to read between the lines in history. But the 5, the Moes, the El Rookins, the Vice Lords, you know what I'm saying? Anybody, even the so-called Bloods, you know what I'm saying? The Black Keystone Bloods and all these, all of these are under the 5. That culture has always been around. But let me understand one thing, and this is why y'all look like goofies now. Again, that gang culture has always existed. The designation of 5 and 6, the red and blue and all that, that's old American culture. That is nothing new. You know what I'm saying? Because back in the day, you would see the tribes, it was the French. The French was wearing the blue, right? And the English, so-called Britain, in the current, in the more modern times, or the colonial times, when Britain ranked, the British was wearing the red and the French was wearing the blue. Again, that has always been, the 5 and the 6 culture has always been prevalent in America. So all the so-called Barbary states that was allied with so-called Britain, they was rocking the red. All of the so-called Barbary tribes, the Muslim tribes that was allied with the so-called French was rocking the blue. It just is that's just the old American culture, the 5 and the 6. But we always will come together against a common threat. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever designation you was under. Because honestly, just doing the knowledge, it kind of seems like, okay, so-called, you might have the so-called Tsalagi of the Cherokee. It's misnomer as the Cherokee, because we're going to talk about how that fake Cherokee term came later on, and, when the Lames and the assimilationists so-called Tsalagi or Cherokee revolted against the real Moes, you know what I'm saying, in the 1800s. But you might have had the so-called Tsalagi of the Cherokee that was allied with the so-called British, and they was rocking the red. But you might have had another tribe, a so-called tribe like the Sheekamauga, and it seemed like they was more so dealing with the French. They was more so dealing with the United States. You know what I'm saying? They might have been rocking blue turbans and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like they might have been they or the Choctaw or the Chickasaw over so-called present day Mississippi. They might have been under the 6. You know what I'm saying? This is nothing new. So they seem like they was more so rocking the blue. You know what I'm saying? So the 5 and the 6, again, that's old American culture. Now, but understand, this is the difference between now and back then. You know what I'm saying? See, a lot of our people now, again, we've been isolated into cities and stuff like that. And y'all are so-called gang banging and holding down turf. Y'all are just worried about city blocks and stuff like that. Y'all are, you know what I'm saying? Y'all are really small time compared to what your ancestors did. Again, I want y'all to imagine this type of culture spread out over miles and miles of terrain. I mean, back in the day, the so-called gang banging and all that, you know what I'm saying? It was real. But these people, these brothers and sisters back in the day, these moles back then, they had a nationality to go with it. So when they were banging it out with whole nations. They were banging it out to control land, control territory, not control territory just in blocks and cities and stuff like that. Man, that's some small time kindergarten stuff compared to what your ancestors was doing. So again, if you sitting out here, I mean, you know, again, our people were under mind control and under witchcraft and spells for, you know, the last however many years, the last century or so. I get it, you know what I'm saying? But it's time to really, if you still out here gang banging, and for a lot of my young cats, y'all still out here joining so-called gangs and all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? But y'all are still just banging over silly stuff like blocks and personal beefs and stuff like that. Man, y'all are literally preschool kindergartners compared to what this whole demonstration used to be about. I mean, back in the day, the 5 and the 6, the red and the blue, they were banging it out for whole city. They were banging it out for miles and miles of turf. They were banging it out for whole states and territories to control and whole industries to control. You know what I'm saying? They was banging it out over the cotton trade. They was banging it out over the fur trade. They was banging it out over, you know, controlling, I mean, real industries, controlling ports, controlling shipping, controlling maritime shipping routes and stuff like that. And controlling interior river routes and stuff like that. They were banging it out as nations with whole armies. Y'all goofies right now. Y'all running up and down the street, BSing around, banging over houses and blocks, man. I mean, come on, bro. Banging it out over projects and shit like that. I mean, bro. I mean, literally, y'all are like preschool kindergartners compared to what this used to be about. If I'm a bang and I'm a rep something, bro, I'm a rep for a whole nation. I'm a rep as a national. I'm gonna be trying to control whole swaths of territory. I'm gonna try to control a whole mountaintop. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to run up and down the street and shoot it out with somebody who look just like me over a damn block. It just don't make no. I mean, if you understand how high a level your ancestors were on, you're gonna understand how minute and childlike our people are now. You know what I'm saying? It's just goofball stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Like, a lot of this gang banging and all this gang shit now, it's just it's just minority child kindergarten preschool type of behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like, literally, that's why you get no respect. You know what I'm saying? Because your ancestors banged it out. Your ancestors banged it out against whole nations. They control hundreds of square miles of turf. That's worth banging for. But you are sitting up here worried about like a section of a city that you under siege from all sides from other nations, and you still running at it with each other, bruh. Come on, man. And you wonder why you get knocked upside your head by policy enforcement and stuff like that, and get mass imprisoned and stuff like that, bro. You're not banging it out for no real national cause. You just look like a straight up goofy. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. So we're gonna lose the knowledge of how it used to be. And hopefully that'll inspire some of y'all to want to get back into a national understanding. So if you want to handle your business as a national in any type of field, be it economics, politics, warfare, whatever, do it from a perspective of a national, with an understanding of a religion or a God. You know what I'm saying? And a flag, a real national flag that's internationally recognized. Don't do it as no damn, some goofy gang or nothing like that, man. That's just goofball stuff. You know what I'm saying? So again, we're gonna show how gangster your ancestors was and how much on a high level they was, and we're gonna talk about how much on the low level y'all are now. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, getting back to the Chickamauga. Now understand, the Chickamauga Tsalagi is the real name of the so-called Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no such thing as a Cherokee. The Cherokee, the word Cherokee is a new reconstructed term, English term. There was never no word called Cherokee in the old section, the old so-called Cherokee turf. That was up in East Tennessee, West North Carolina, Southwestern Kentucky, West Virginia, North Georgia, that whole and all the way, going over to East Middle Tennessee and North Alabama and all that. You know what I'm saying? That was Tsalagi land. That was Tsalagi turf for old Tunis. You know what I'm saying? There's no such thing as no Cherokee. That's a fake reconstructed term. So y'all need to really get that out the paint. If you claim in Cherokee, claiming to be a so-called Cherokee is like claiming to be so-called black, man. Again, just like Aboriginal is the new black, we're going to start talking Cherokee is the new black. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of y'all is always talking about some Cherokees and all that. Y'all ancestors just said all that. And I get it. Again, we was under conquest. We was under occupation. So you had to claim what you had to claim. But for real, man, it's time to get out of the nonsense, man. If you gonna claim something, claim Chickamauga, claim Tsalagi, claim the Islamic Muslim terms. That's a free national term. That is not trademarked by no nonsense, by some federal government or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? So again, the real people, the real so-called Cherokees are the Tsalagi Sheekamauga. You know what I'm saying? And they were straight up Moors. They was some Jeff Fort, El Rukin type of Moors. And we're going to prove that in this drop, you know what I'm saying? So, check it out. Of course, quiet storm, it's all good. So now we're going to take a little bit of there's a website called so-called ChickamaugANation.com. It was kind of clearing up confusion a little bit. We don't know what these people's phenotype is or whatever, but they did have a lot of the science on with the Chickamauga, and they was correcting a lot of the nonsense that you can find in places like Wikipedia and all that. You know what I'm saying? All the reconstructed nonsense. But it did say these people know what's up. They know the real Chickamauga are the Moors. You know what I'm saying? Like the present day Moorish Americans are the mighty Chickamauga. You know what I'm saying? Because the so-called Chickamauga never surrendered nothing. You know what I'm saying? They ain't never signed no treaties to cede no lands or nothing like that, because these people understood the blood law. In the old Chickamauga Tsalagi culture, that's an old Moorish culture, Muslim culture. That means lands they had a blood law about the land, so it was literally punishable by death to these people to sell land. You know what I'm saying? And lease land to no Europeans or no settlers or no slaves or nothing like that. Or no Slav, none of these people, or make any land corporate, because it was under holy blood title, under holy covenant. That's the old culture, and they would kill it. Like literally, you would be executed if you sold land and signed treaties to the United States under that old Moorish blood law of the Tsalagi, not the Cherokee, but the Tsalagi. And we're gonna talk about that blood law. But check it out. We're gonna read some notes from this site and just go into the story of the Chickamauga. You know what I'm saying? The Chickamauga. So it says that Chickamauga and Cherokee Chickamauga Cherokee is a derogatory reference to the Chickamauga, who, according to U.S. colonial records relating to Indian affairs, were in existence prior to the 1750s. Okay, so it says the Chickamauga were in existence prior to the 1750s. Now they like to talk. Now, if you look at the history of the you look at the history of the so-called official history of the Chickamauga, it's going to talk about how they were founded in 1776 when the Revolutionary War broke out, when Dragon Canoe and he took a so-called militant faction, a so-called Cherokee, and he just started doing raids on the so-called on the Revolutionary United States settlers. You know what I'm saying? He started doing raids on them. That's when they claimed the Chickamauga Cherokee started. But in this record right here, it just said that in South Carolina colonial records, the so-called Chickamauga were in existence in that so-called area before the 1750s. So that what that tells you is the old name for the Chickamauga name and the Tsalagi name is the real name for the so-called Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? The Cherokee is a new federally recognized term that all the sellouts and lames and assimilationists and mixed breed folks took on later on down the line when they did a revolt against the Moorish Cherokee in the 1800s, and we're gonna get to that. So check it out. And now it says that the Chickamauga were part of the mound building culture. Okay, so in any history, when they talk about the mound building people, they talking about niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like the mound builders were the niggas. You know what I'm saying? Now the rest of these teepee living nomadic type of people, and these new people, these $5 Indians and all these new people, they are the federally recognized. You know what I'm saying? They are the federally recognized goofies and the low people in the old society. You know what I'm saying? These people were nomadic type of people. They lived in like shacks, mountains. They lived in like shacks, small villages. They lived in like teepees. These, the more mongoloid looking ones, and a lot of the more Euro looking, so-called Indians and all these people. These people were nobodies in old America. The Moors, the so-called Negroid type of the Muslims and leaders of these factions. They are the ones who were the mound builders. They were the ones who had the cities. They had the towns. They had the permanent structures. They had the temples. They had the mosques. They had the long houses made out of brick and all that stuff. The industries. They had the boats. They had the ports. The Moors, the Muslims, you know what I'm saying? The Muslims and the Hebraic people, they the ones who are the mound builders. They always make a distinction if you're looking at historical records about the mound builders and the so-called other Indians. Because the so-called other Indians are literally the nobodies. You know what I'm saying? So the Mongoloid looking Indians and all these people were literally nobodies. It's not, you know what I'm saying? They were under the jurisdiction of the Moors in the old society. Now again, these people came up in the federal era when the United States took over a lot of these places, and they were able to sign a lot of hidden hand deals, and they would have become the new face in the whole reconstructed history of the wild Indian savages living in teepees. They let these Mongoloid looking people, be the face of the so-called Indian or the indigenous culture of America, because they were writing the Moors out of history. Because again, the Moors never signed no treaties with no damn body besides treaties of peace and friendship and the Barbary treaties. You know what I'm saying? But we never signed no treaties, see nothing to the so-called United States. Only the mixed breeds and the sellouts signed those treaties. You know what I'm saying? So and there's still a lot of them are still null and void to this day, because a lot of the mixed breed sellouts and the lames and the assimilationists, they signed these treaties and they got murked and executed by the real ones afterwards. They signed these treaties. A lot of these people who signed these fake treaties with the United States and the so-called ceded Indian lands in the East, they all got killed. They all got killed by the real ones right after it happened. So that makes a lot of that stuff null and void. And to this day, a lot of the so-called niggas that's still in these places, these are the people that stayed and never took on no term or nothing. They stayed right where they was at and kept banging it out and dealing with whatever they had to deal with. You know what I'm saying? So just keep it a buck, man. You know what I mean? So check it out. So they said the Chickamaugas were the mound builders. So the Cherokees were not no mound builders, but the Chickamaugas was the mound builders. So they was the niggas. Let's keep it a buck, you know what I'm saying? Now, they did talk about how there was some so-called new people that were driven south from Lake Erie, the so-called Erie tribe, you know what I'm saying? From Lake Erie, that's up near Ohio, near Cleveland and all that. You know what I'm saying? They came down south to the so-called Cherokee area as a result of the Beaver Wars when the Iroquois was going up there. And we're gonna do a drop on the Iroquois next very soon, but the Iroquois had the Beaver Wars up in the mid 1600s, and they was pretty much just again, that's the upper New English Moorish Mafia, and they was just going to war with everybody up there to lock down the beaver trade, because it was $1 million. It was a lucrative trade. It was kind of like the dope boy. It was kind of like the drug trade. Like them Europeans wanted them beaver furs, so the Iroquois was going down, locking it down. You know what I'm saying, and kicking anybody who it was get down and lay down with the Iroquois up at that time. They was like, nah, and y'all gonna get down with this Moorish Mafia, or y'all gonna get the hell on. You know what I'm saying? So there was a new tribe that moved south in the 1670s and took refuge. So a lot of these remember, there's a whole different group of people that came down and took refuge in the Chickamauga Tsalagi area. And then, the Chickamauga probably took them in. But you don't know, these people might have had a different phenotype. They might have been more, they might have been more Mongoloid. And they could have been Moorish too. You just never know. But just understand, some new people came south in the 1670s to Tsalagi territory in the south as a result of the Beaver Wars when the Iroquois was locking the beaver trade down up north. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. So it says the Chickamauga and Cherokee. Okay, this is getting into it now. It says the Chickamauga and the Cherokee are two separate ethnicities, and it's derogatory to confuse the two. So if you read, there's a lot of articles you will read that will act like the so-called Chickamauga and the so-called Cherokee are the same people, but that's always been capped. Again, the real name has always been Tsalagi or Sheekamauga, and a lot of people say Anunui or whatever, but I tend to go with Tsalagi and Chickamauga. You know what I'm saying? But they're making a distinction that these are two different ethnicities, and y'all, in a sense, they said the Chickamauga are the mound builders. That means the Chickamaugas was the Moors, the Barbary Moors under the five. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to talk about why they was under the five, because they were definitely under the five. You know what I'm saying? But the Chickamauga are the niggas. The Cherokees are some other people. You know what I'm saying? Always been that way. So you sitting up. So you Abo Lame and you Abo Lames and the number one goofy Abo Lame up here claiming to be an Eastern Band Cherokee and making videos talking down on the Moors. This clown is a straight up goofy. So this fool has a nigga phenotype, right? You know what I'm saying? And everybody know this clown I'm talking about. This fool who claimed Eastern Band Cherokee and always talking down on the Moors on Killer Priest show and all that stuff. I mean, a straight up clown, a fat, lame clown goofy, you know what I'm saying? Just a big goofy, I mean, for real, bro. But anyway, this clown up here claiming Eastern Band Cherokee. And his clown but we just read that the Chickamauga are the mound builders. And the Chickamauga and the Cherokee are two separate ethnicities. So this clown up here hollering Niji and all this garbage online and talking down on the Moors, talking about he a Niji and trying to tell so-called blacks and stuff that they the Aboriginals and they are Nijis and Osayo and all that. He claiming to be a Cherokee, and the Cherokee ain't even the same ethnicity as the mound building Chickamauga, who was the real original niggas. You know what I'm saying? That's how goofy these people are. Like you know what I'm saying? They so full of, like they so biased and full of just anti-Moorish hate that they make themselves look like kindergarten retards. You know what I'm saying? He's literally claiming an ethnicity that's not even of his phenotype. You know what I'm saying? Trying to talk down on the Moors. But the Chickamauga are the mound builders and the Moors. You know what I'm saying? So he even out of bounds claiming Cherokee, man. I mean, people like that for real. They're not worth debating or talking to, man. They literally just worth just getting backslapped. You know what I'm saying? I mean, literally slap the taste out their mouth. That's all they deserve, man. They deserve to be put to hard labor and get their ass whooped. That's the only thing they deserve, man. They don't even deserve to be humored with the debate or anything because they're just too stupid. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. Chickamauga, it says Chickamauga, the Chickamauga are confused because this is where the confusion comes in for the Europeans. It ain't no confusion with us. You know what I'm saying? Like the people in the know, we've always known what's up. You know what I'm saying? But for the Europeans and the goofy and the goofies who have a Eurocentric mind and have been go with the education, the English education they got in these communist schools. You know what I'm saying? This is where the confusion comes in for y'all. It says, the Chickamauga are confused because at the Treaty of Hopewell, the Europeans used the phrase to all Cherokees, meaning whoever spoke the local language, which was more than likely Mozarabic, like a Mozarabic type of Latin language. And this is in the Tennessee, up in East Tennessee area, you know what I'm saying? It was a Mozarabic type of Latin language. And the European gringos, you know what I'm saying? They don't know none of these languages. They don't know none of these people. So everybody was a so-called Cherokee to them. That's how you know. Tsalagi, a lot of these gringo type of people, and no knock on them, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't really deal with color, but some of these people who are, like, they were so slow with their speech. They couldn't say Tsalagi, like, you know what I'm saying, like the real word Tsalagi. So they made up some fake nonsense called the Cherokees. You know what I'm saying? They literally can't talk. So to them, everybody's a damn Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? But it's Tsalagi. You know what I mean? Because these people, they can't deal with advanced frequencies and advanced languages. So they just they just put everybody in the same category. But literally, it just said the Chickamauga and the so-called Cherokee are confused to this day because in an old treaty, they saw all these similar looking people together speaking a similar language, and they just made a term up for them. Because again, these people don't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, okay, again, it said the Chickamauga. Now we know that Chickamauga tend to be associated with so-called Dragon Canoe. He was like the Moorish mob boss of the so-called Chickamauga after 1776, when the whole hostilities with the United States ensued. The Revolutionary War broke out because at that point it was either you were going to go with Britain. If you was going to ally with yourself with Britain, a so-called Britain under the red. You know what I'm saying, or you was going to go with the United States. You know what I'm saying. And that pretty much broke everybody up along tribal lines. You know what I'm saying? That broke all of the Barbary nations up along whoever you was going to go with. And it seemed like a lot of the old nations that was kind of down with the so-called French, which was the blue, they kind of stuck it. They kind of went over to the so-called United States. And all of the old Barbary states that were down with the so-called British, you know what I'm saying, it seemed like that was under the five of the red. They kind of was, they were loyalists. You know what I'm saying? They stuck with, they wanted to keep their military and economic alliance with so-called Britain. So again, there's always been red and blue. You know what I mean? It's interesting. That's why I say the 5 and the 6, man. That's old American culture. There ain't nothing new under the sun. That's why if you claiming anything other than 5 and 6, literally, I mean, you're not really claiming a real American culture. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why all these Aboriginal goofies and so-called Black Indians and Pan Africans, these people are nobodies. You know what I'm saying? They are goofies. They don't have no understanding or knowledge of real American culture. They are under foreign doctrine, or they're foreigners themselves. They don't understand the real culture of America, the real Mississippian culture. again, a real Mississippian culture literally is 5 and 6. You know what I'm saying? And that's really what we just don't have to start driving home to you clowns. You know what I'm saying? So it says the Chickamauga were in existence prior to Dragon Canoe, whose real name was Sayugansini. Sayugansini. You know what I'm saying? That was so-called Dragon Canoe's real name. And I want y'all to imagine this. Understand? They called and understand so-called Dragon Canoe. He was the one who led. He led the so-called Chickamauga, who are the Moorish, who is the real name of the Moorish Barbary nation. It was a so-called Cherokee territory. This is a Moorish Barbary nation. You know what I'm saying? He led the Barbary Moors, to separate, to separate from the United States and form a militant faction that kind of just, all they did was they formed a line along the Appalachian Mountains, and they pretty much ran border patrol on so-called European settlers who were down with the United States. They would not let these settlers cross the line. You know what I'm saying? Like for a long time. But let's talk about so-called Dragon Canoe and what his name was. Okay. Sayugansini, so-called Dragon Canoe. You know what I'm saying? He's the leader of the Chickamauga after 1776. That's the main period we're going to deal with after 1776, because that has a lot of political implications of, what's going on now. So, Dragon Canoe, he led the Chickamauga after 1777. Let's talk about what his nickname was. They call him the Red Chief, or the Red Sheik. All right. So who wear the red? Why would his name be the Red Sheik or the Red Chief? You know what I'm saying? Ain't that Moorish? Ain't red the Moorish color? You know what I'm saying? Ain't everybody ain't red the dominant color of the 5? And he was the Red Chief. Come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I want y'all to imagine when they talk about so-called Dragon Canoe or Sayugansini. Sayugansini was literally like a Moorish Mafia boss in Tennessee. He might as well, he was like a Jeff Fort. He would have the same phenotype. He was like a Jeff Fort or a Jay Prince, you know what I'm saying? Or a Larry Hoover, you know what I'm saying? Like that was literally that was literally what Dragon Canoe or Sayugansini, that's who he was. And he was leading the whole Moorish army in East Tennessee, you know what I'm saying, against the United States and keeping the Moorish frontier border free of so-called European settlers, or Christians, you know what I'm saying? Because again, this is the Crusades. These people did not want Christians and United States people kind of coming west of the Moorish border up in Tennessee along the Appalachian Mountains. So Sayugansini, he set up a bunch of towns and ran border patrol for like 20 years between 1776 and 1794. And I want you, again, Sayugansini, a.k.a. Dragon Canoe, is literally like a Jeff Ford or Larry Hoover of the East Tennessee Old Moorish Mafia. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it was. It's just real. You know what I mean? So we're going to talk about Dragon Canoe, Sayugansini. So it says Sayugansini, he left the Grand Council at Chota, which is the old so-called Tsalagi Cherokee capital, Chota, Tennessee, so-called Tennessee today. That was their capital town. But he left the Grand Council at Chota because he was taught by his mother. That their culture punished, but that the culture punished by death those who sold and traded lands. Okay, lands were holy domain. Sayugansini left the Grand Council to join other mound builder relatives in lower towns. Okay, now. And this is taken directly from an article from ChickamaugANation.com. You know what I'm saying? So it says that Sayugansini, he was taught by his mother that trading these lands was punishable by death. That's part of the old Moorish Barbary culture, because these people held these lands under holy titles. So understand the newly formed United States, even the British colonies and all that, they were dealing with more of a corporate demonstration. So they believed in owning land and individual plots and all that type, individual lots and things like that, and giving lands to corporations and companies for a corporate profit and all that. But in the old Moorish culture, that was literally punishable by death. They believed in community, holy trusts and all that. So it was all community land. So the holy elected officials and the electors, they were the ones who were able, and the people who were kind of showed through merit or divine or blood rights or whatever, the holy men, they were the ones who were able to, to assign land plots and all that, but it was still held under holy blood titles. You know what I'm saying? But the corporate thing, there's nothing holy under the corporate demonstration. So that means the United States was a corporate, even back then was more of a corporate entity. And they were trying to kind of break down the old blood titles and old holy domain because it was all about corporate profit. So they were trying to push that line outside of the colony zone onto Moorish turf, the so-called East Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, deep in that area. Because again, back in those days, East Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky, all of that is old Moorish Islamic turf. Ohio, that's Islamic old turf. Again, it's all old Islamic turf. So we didn't believe in all that corporate nonsense. It was all mercantilism and holy blood titles and stuff like that. And it just said, Sayu Gansini dragging canoes taught by his mother that all that selling and trading of holy Tsalagi land, that was punishable by death. You know what I'm saying? So, and it also said that he joined his fellow mound builders to the south. So what's south of East Tennessee? Ain't it Georgia? Ain't it Alabama? Ain't it the Black Belt, the Moorish Belt, the mound builders? It just said he went south to join his mound builder relatives. So these is all niggas. You know what I'm saying? Let's just keep it a buck, man. You know what I mean? Come on, bro. All right, so let's see. The Chickamauga, okay, we're just going into the notes. Okay, the Chickamauga separated from the main Tsalagi or Cherokee in 1776. And this is dragging Canoe's faction, because he ain't nothing but a Moorish mob boss. You know what I'm saying? That's all he is. He's like a Jeff Fort to the Chickamauga at the time. He just took the Moors who was not trying to be Christian and was trying to maintain the culture, the militant Moors, and was not trying to allow the new settlers and the new Christians and the new corporate people to move anywhere west of the Appalachian Mountains. They just wasn't with all that. You know what I'm saying? So it separated from the main body in 1776, and they established 11 new towns, and they were called the so-called Lower Tsalagi, or the Lower Cherokee. So that's why they started calling these people the Lower Cherokee, because they had the lower towns, and all in those lower towns, even to this day, are like the area of like Chattanooga, you know what I'm saying, North Georgia, that area, North Alabama, that area. That's where the Chickamauga set up the lower towns. So I want y'all to imagine, if y'all ever been up to Chattanooga, that area, back in the day, I want y'all, and Lookout Mountain and all that, I want y'all to imagine there's some Moorish Muslim niggas is up there running everything. You know what I'm saying? Up in the mountains and all that. So under the five, some so-called gangsters, you know what I'm saying? Like rocking red turbans and all that, looking like yours truly. That's how I had to rock the red, like the red chief. You know what I'm saying? The red Chickamauga chief, I had to rock it like him. You know what I'm saying? Going just to make a point. But I want y'all to imagine these red Moorish Muslims led by somebody looking like Jeff Fort, running East Tennessee, running Lookout Mountain, running Chattanooga, running all that. You know what I'm saying? Having a whole Moorish army up there. You know what I'm saying? Giving them settlers hell, making sure they don't come nowhere near the holy turf. You know what I'm saying? I want y'all to imagine that. So while y'all sitting there running up and down the street, killing, gang banging over blocks and over city blocks, the old Chickamauga Moors were sitting up there controlling whole mountains, whole hundreds of square miles of turf. That's what they was banging about, while y'all banging about absolutely nothing now. You know what I'm saying? Just goofball stuff. You feel me? All right. Now, it said the Europeans called the Chickamauga merciless Indian savages. You know what I'm saying? Because again, the Chickamauga, they believed in, okay, we're gonna get into it. So it said they joined the Chickamauga. They eventually joined up with traditionalist Meckasukie or Muskogee, and we already know that the so-called Muskogee or the Meckasukie Nation is pretty much all of Georgia, all of Lower Georgia, all of Alabama. At that time, it was all of that. You know what I'm saying? And ain't nothing but who is in Georgia? Who's in Georgia, Alabama? I know outside of the Europeans, who's really in Georgia and Alabama and all of that stuff to this day? The niggas, right? So they joined. So back in the day, Georgia, Alabama, these are the traditionalists, and they said that the Chickamauga joined up with. They had an alliance with the Muskogee traditionalists. This means they was all Muslims. So all of Georgia, all of Alabama, all that whole turf. That's all old Muslim turf. It just said it right here. So if you walking around, if you claim, y'all are sitting up here worried about some Georgia Bulldogs and some Alabama football games and all that, man, this old Islamic turf. Y'all look like straight up goofies going, you know what I'm saying, worried about an Alabama football game and all that stuff. But that's old Moorish holy Islamic turf. That's how far off they square they got the Mississippian people, man. I be seeing Mississippians walking around with some University of Alabama hats and all that when that's old Alabama. Y'all supposed to be walking around in that turf with turbans, just Muslimed up, you know what I'm saying? But y'all sitting here disrespecting y'all ancestors, following some European college sports and all. Man, just looking like straight goofies, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, just goofies, man. It's just sad to watch. It really is. I can only imagine what Allah think of y'all goofies, man, for real. All right, so it said that the Chickamauga joined with traditionalist Muskogee and Mobilian tribes. That's interesting. The Mobilian tribes. Didn't Chief Tuscaloosa wasn't his town name? What his town name? Mobila. So the Mobilian tribes. These are the Alabamian tribes, the Alabama tribes. You know what I'm saying? So they Muslims. You know what I'm saying? And they believed in no surrender. So they believed in fighting to the death. That's why they call them merciless Indian savages. And this is how you know the same people, right? I don't know if a lot of y'all are not old enough to remember, but I don't know if y'all remember Creeping on the Come Up by Bone Thugs and Harmony. They had that song called No Surrender. And you look at Bone Thugs, man, I mean, literally look at those brothers, man. Those brothers are straight up Moors are so-called Indians, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look at their phenotype. But they had a song called No Surrender. That's literally that's all this stuff was passed down through the blood. That's exactly what the Muskogee, the Chickamauga, and these traditionalist Moors of the South believed. They believed in no surrender. We ain't seen nothing. We fighting to the bloody end. That's why they call them merciless Indian savages. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these other people can't deal with real Moors culture, because it's death before dishonor. You know what I'm saying? That's how the real Moors culture go. You feel me? They ain't ready to live like, they don't like living like that. You know what I'm saying? They kind of soft. You know what I mean? But anyway, all right. So it says, okay. So Dragon Canoe. This is Sayugan Dragon Canoe. This is around the time of around the time of the Revolutionary War in the late 1770s, early 1780s. He set up Chattanooga. So Sayugan a Jeff Fort type of nigga, is who founded Chattanooga. So when y'all ride through places like Chattanooga, understand that's an old Moorish town. That's an old Moorish town under the five. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Like, it's not a game. You know what I'm saying? So, and to understand, that was founded by a Moor, a Moslem, a Mississippian. You know what I mean? Chattanooga. You already know by the name. You know what I mean? So y'all are walking through these cities, and y'all don't understand that these are old holy turfs, old holy cities founded by your ancestors. You know, Europeans started none of these places. You know what I mean? And they're all being torn down and gentrified, and they look ridiculous right now. They tearing down all your holy buildings in a lot of these places. I mean, Chattanooga look all gentrified and jacked up right now. It's just sad to watch. But again, y'all Mississippians off y'all square, so y'all ain't, you know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't doing nothing about it. And it's just goofball stuff, man. So, but he set up Chattanooga, which it was probably an existing city, but he set up a base there. And they said the Europeans referred to the entire region. Okay, this is the entire region of East Tennessee as Chickamauga. So that's an old district. So again, we just doing a delineation. There were no Cherokees up in this area. This was all Chickamauga turf back then. You know what I'm saying? So they said the Europeans referred to the whole East Tennessee area, North Georgia, North Alabama area, as Chickamauga, not no damn Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? So again, that's out the window. You know what I mean? Now, it did say that okay, so it said that, in the Revolutionary War, they had a lot of battles and fighting and blood, blood being spilled in the Revolutionary War, and a lot of the original 11 towns got destroyed. The Chickamauga towns that they found after 1776 got destroyed by the settlers and the state militias and all that stuff. So they established the 5 lower towns. You know what I'm saying? So the 5 lower towns, and from running water. Okay, it said that dragging canoes from a town called Running Water, and that's the current city of Trenton, Georgia. I've been through there before. Trenton, Georgia, up in the north. It's not right outside of Chattanooga. Dragging canoe led attacks. This was his head. Running Water, Trenton, Georgia, was dragging canoe's headquarters, and he led raids and assaults on settlements all over the southeast from there for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So your ancestors they was banging like this. They set up cities and fortifications high up in the mountains. You know what I'm saying? High up in the mountains. And then they went on jihad attacks on European settlers all over the damn southeast, man. You know what I'm saying? While y'all sit up here running up and down streets and blocks, you know what I'm saying, doing all type of niggatry. You know what I'm saying? Your ancestors was out there they was running whole raids and whole Moorish armies from mountaintops, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how on a low level y'all are now. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real, man. Catch up. You dig? All right. So it says, from running water, dragging canoe-led attacks on settlements around the southeast. They had continuous. It was a continuous war. And they like to call them Cherokee American Wars or whatever. These were like 3 different wars, but it said that they kind of lasted up until 1794. It said the Chickamauga raided as far as Indiana, Kentucky, and they were down with the Northwest Confederacy. We're gonna do another drop on the Northwest Confederacy, but they were down with them and they helped set them up. So you understand this was a whole Moorish army in the interior of the country that was keeping the United States settlers east of the Proclamation line of 1763. We had a whole line that you better not cross. You know what I'm saying? Like for real, like they were doing raids on settlers. They was mass enslavement. I mean, the United States was attacking us. They were taking us, but we were damn sure attacking them. They was enslaving people. They was taking POWs and captives, killing folks. Like it was not a game. Like it was a real border. It was a real border patrol. You know what I'm saying? It might as well have been the United States-Mexico border because that's what the Appalachian Mountains were, the old border of the United States. You know what I'm saying? And you had a whole Moorish Barbary army from Ohio all the way down to Georgia. It was not playing no games with these settlers. You know what I'm saying? So now, it said ultimately the in the beginning during the Revolutionary War, dragging canoe, he was kind of like considered like they were considered the militant faction of the so-called Cherokee. But it said as the war drew on, and the settlers were out there just doing all type of sucker shit. You know what I'm saying? They was doing all type of dishonorable stuff in war, just and attacking civilians and all type of stuff. It said that the majority of the so-called Cherokee, they ultimately started supporting the Chickamauga cause. So that means everybody, even the people that was like pacifists and all that in the beginning of the war, they started supporting the rebel Moslem Chickamauga because they saw that them settlers was taking no prisoners. Like they was out there just doing all type of atrocities, you know what I'm saying, against the Moors. So everybody was like, well, hell, you know what I'm saying, we might as well go on jihad, you know what I'm saying? So it said the majority of the Cherokee eventually supported the Chickamauga, and this is around the time of the 1780s. You know what I mean? It said, so in the Chickamauga Wars, ultimately the majority of the Barbary Moors was, they was helping and aiding the Chickamauga. So that's why it was kind of a successful war and held the settlers at bay, all the way up until 1794. So, Dragon Canoe died. It said Dragon Canoe died in 1792. And he recognized and he pretty much advocated for another sheik named John Watts to take control. And John Watts resumed the war against the United States. It said Watts moved his base of operations to Willstown to be closer to his Muskogee allies, which is the niggas to the south. You already know. So, yeah. So they were allied with the Miccosukee. So John Watts took over after Dragon Canoe. All right, now we're gonna talk about the names of the original Chickamauga towns. Just go over the names and we're just gonna connect it to Islam. So it says the original Chickamauga towns were Cayuga, Chatowi, Osowi, Tellico, Chattooga, which is Chattanooga. You know what I'm saying? Great Hiawassee. That's a Hiawassee is up North Georgia right now. So these are old Moorish towns. All these towns are old Moorish towns. Let's just keep it above. Attilwa, Saltee, Black Fox, Chattanooga, Opelika, Chickamauga, Toccoa, and Old Tennessee. So a lot of these old towns are still in existence, so they have different names. So again, when you go up to the North Georgia mountains, the East Tennessee mountains, I want y'all to understand. Again, you already had different phenotype type of people. You had Turkish type of people. You had Mongoloid type of people. You had Europeans. You had all these people living back when it was a Barbary area controlled by the so-called Tsalagi. You had all type of different people living in this area. But I want y'all to understand when y'all go to North Georgia and y'all go to East Tennessee and y'all go to these areas, I want y'all to understand these are old Moorish towns that were ran by your ancestors. And it's interesting. Ironically, like in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Ironically, and I think it's got something to do with these Europeans. They got, they was real salty about how bad they got did in the Chickamauga Wars, and the militant Chickamauga that was not playing no games with their ancestors. But it's interesting that in North Georgia, East Tennessee, in this area, is very European right now. But there was a history, like in the 1900s, early 2000, all up through the 1900s, there been a lot of sundown towns up there. You know what I'm saying? Up in like North Georgia, a lot of these old Moorish towns got taken over by Europeans, and they were sundown towns. You know what I'm saying? So, yo, if you was a Morris and you was Mississippi, boy, you better not be caught in a lot of these towns after sundown, man. You would get disappeared real quick. They say like the city of Hiawassee up in North Georgia is to this day it's like damn near sundown town. You know what I'm saying? But understand, then these people went hard in a lot of these places because the Chickamauga Moors up there did their ancestors was giving hell to their ancestors, and you know what I'm saying. So when they got down, they were like, well, yeah, y'all niggas better not come up here. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all did us dirty back in the day. You know what I mean? So anyway, this is very interesting. Now, one thing about the Chickamauga towns that set up after 1776, these towns were kind of considered like outlaw renegade towns because any of these towns, they were militant towns, and they kind of like, again, you know how we talk about their sundown towns. There were sundown towns for us in the 1900s and all that, like in North Georgia. It was real. North Georgia has a history of just insane racism. You know what I'm saying? Like these Europeans in North Georgia, I mean, they hate niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like for real. Like just the old culture. It's not as bad as it used to be, but just the historic culture of North Georgia, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of these wars that were going on in the 1700s and these Barbary wars, because the Barbary Moors in those old areas, they were not letting Europeans come down there. You know what I'm saying? So that really means a lot of this stuff is a holy turf. So they didn't want no Europeans and none of these Christians or none of these people in this area. You know what I'm saying? That means a lot. It must be a lot of artifacts and old holy sites and everything in these places that the Barbary Moors up there were fighting so hard to keep these Europeans away from. So it's very interesting that there were a lot of sundown towns and stuff would develop in these places. You know what I'm saying? So let's see. And again, all those Moorish towns were under the 5 even back then. You know what I'm saying? This is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. You feel me? So they said the 5 lower towns. Now, again, I want to drive it home. Y'all, a lot of y'all out here, a lot of you youngsters and all y'all people out here gang banging now. You know what I'm saying? Literally for city blocks and neighborhoods that a lot of y'all don't even, they're under trusteeship of the United States, and y'all don't own nothing. But I want y'all to understand, your ancestors was gang, and they was gang for a real reason. They literally had their own towns and their own states. You know what I'm saying? So that's a reason to gang. That's a reason to gang bang right there. That's a reason to really go hard and go to war and do all of that. Y'all right now, y'all are just. Again, y'all are like at a kindergarten level of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like the only time you should really be wanting to deal with like this insane type of mass warfare is when you're fighting for a nation or a real cause. Like just running up and down the street for some type of superficial reason and all that stuff. I mean, it's just mentally retarded. You know what I'm saying? Your ancestors was banging against the whole nations. You know what I'm saying? And you take your fighting skills and your fighting frequency up to a different level when that's the case. You know what I'm saying? Like literally these Moorish mobsters was running military operations from high mountain towns and stuff like that. I mean, they had forts, they had fortifications, they had cavalry, they had all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all now, like y'all are really, again, y'all are minorities now. You know what I'm saying? So right now, let's just put it like this. If you gang banging with no towns, you gang banging for nothing. You know what I'm saying? Your ancestors was gang banging for towns and cities. Whole towns, you know what I'm saying? Whole towns, not no damn city block. If you gang banging with no towns, you gang banging for absolutely nothing. And you's a goofy. I mean, let's just keep it a buck, man. Take it back to the level it need to be at. Don't be out here just looking like a goofy, going to jail, ruining your life for a city block or something stupid. And then a lot of people are literally gang banging. You know what I'm saying? For neighborhoods this in whole other states and different cities. I mean, it just makes no sense. I mean, it's literally mentally retarded. Like if you go gang bang for a national cause. You know what I'm saying? So again, if you are not gang banging for towns and states, like literal control of them and their economies and their land and everything, then you are gang banging for nothing. And you's a goofy. You know what I'm saying? Let's just keep it a buck, man. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's see. All right, so it said the Europeans called the Chickamauga the militant Cherokee. We're gonna talk about okay. So 1782, John Seaver, and I've been to Seaverville, Tennessee. That's where Pigeon Forge is and all that. But John Seaver, who's Seaverville is named after. You know what I'm saying? But and that's what, like, right around the corner from Gatlinburg, Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? And again, this is all old Moorish turf. You know what I'm saying? Let's not get it messed up. It's very European now, but that's all old Moorish holy turf. Don't get it messed up. You know what I'm saying? So in 1782, John Seaver and his militia destroyed the 11 Chickamauga towns. You know what I'm saying? The towns that they kind of set up after the Revolutionary War kicked off. And it said that Chickamauga established the 5 lower towns. And again, they became, just became the outlaw towns. You know what I'm saying? Renegade towns, the renegade towns. You know what I'm saying? Because they called the Moors who rebelled and wanted to stay Muslim. They called them renegades. You know what I'm saying? But again, they weren't calling the Moors, the Barbary Moors who rebelled and were, killing Europeans and all that. They didn't call them renegades because they were rebelling against European rule. They started to call them renegades because they were essentially rebelling against the Sultan. Our Sultan. You know what I'm saying? Who was, more likely, again, we've already talked about this up in Chicago. But the Sultan had a lot of treaties with the United States. So when you were going against those treaties and still killing Europeans and snatching them up, seizing their boats and ships and all that, they was going to call you a renegade. Not because you were rebelling against Europeans, but you were rebelling against your own country, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So, you know how it goes. Now, we'll talk about how they, the Cherokee the so-called Cherokee setup. They said they had something called the first beloved man. This was kind of their what the first beloved man was essentially a grand sheik. You know what I'm saying? If you're familiar with this, the setup of the Moorish Science Temple, they had grand sheiks, but they call them, the European with the European rewritten history, they call them the first beloved men. And these are essentially grand sheiks. This is how the Tsalagi used to handle their business. They had the first beloved man, or the principal chief, or the main grand sheik. You know what I'm saying? So they said that the first beloved man for the Tsalagi, he tended to be a chief negotiator for the Europeans, on behalf of a lot of the Cherokee towns, Tsalagi towns. You know what I'm saying? But the Tsalagi towns were kind of our culture's always been a confederation of towns and cities. You know what I'm saying? So the towns were pretty much autonomous. It's kind of just similar to the way the United States is set up now. But the towns were autonomous, but they came together under confederacies and regional confederacies. You know what I'm saying? But they were autonomous and did their own thing. So, you know what I'm saying? But you had the Grand Sheik and the first beloved men, who kind of was the united negotiator or mediator for all of these towns in certain areas. You know what I'm saying? So it's essentially a Grand Sheik. You know what I mean? So, okay. So after the peace, we're gonna talk about the peace. After the peace of 1794, this is after the Chickamauga Wars. Tsalagi had 5 groups. We're gonna keep on seeing this 5 again. These people are writing in code, so they're trying to tell you what's up. They're trying to tell you about the 5 and the 6, the old culture of the 5 and the 6 in America. But they're always gonna write in code. But they always the number 5 continuously appears in a lot of these articles. So it said after the peace of 1794, again, this was just like a ceasefire, because them Europeans was like, listen, we got to stop these raids, because these Chickamauga were giving these Europeans hell. You know what I'm saying? They was raiding, capturing, enslaving Europeans all up and down, all up through the Appalachians, all the way from Ohio to Georgia. You know what I'm saying? So they eventually came up with a peace treaty in 1794 to kind of slow down the hostilities. And I really think the United States and the Europeans were they were like, we can't deal with these militant Moors straight up in a fight, because they were giving them hell. So they were like, we're gonna use peace and kind of break them down internally. You know what I'm saying? Which is what, they always pretty much, they never kind of win a straight up fight with the Moors, but they always break us down internally. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what ended up happening with the so-called Tsalagi. You know what I'm saying? So they had a peace treaty in 1794, and they said that at that time, the Tsalagi had 5 groups. Okay, they keep on talking about this 5. They said they had the upper towns, the so-called upper towns. They had the overhill towns, the hill towns, the valley towns, and the lower towns. Now that's, again, the 5. You know what I'm saying? We gonna keep driving it home that the 5 has always been in existence in America. You know what I'm saying? It's always been red and blue. That's just an old American way of doing things. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So they letting you know that the so-called Tsalagi were under the 5. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. Blood gang type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, now it said dragon canoe around the time of 1790, right before he died in 1792, because they signed a peace treaty in 1794, of course, after he was gone. You know what I'm saying? So ain't no telling if he would have stayed alive, if they even would have been able to get that peace treaty with the Chickamauga. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? But Dragon Canoe, he acknowledged Little Turtle. Okay, I mean not Little Turtle, Little Turkey. You know what I'm saying? As the Grand Sheik, the most first beloved man of the Cherokee, the Tsalagi, in 1792 before he died. And now let's go on that name. Little Turkey is an interesting name. Now we already know that the so-called Ottoman Turks the so-called Ottoman Turk. That demonstration of their culture extended from the Americas all the way over to so-called Turkey. So it's interesting that they will have a Grand Sheik named Little Turkey. We're gonna kind of come back to that, but they let you know that these people are Turks. You know what I'm saying? The Moorish Turks. You know what I'm saying? These are essentially the same people. You might have had different phenotypes or whatever, but the boss dogs in that whole demonstration, the Ottoman, the Turks, and all of that was is the Mississippians. So his name being Little Turkey, and he founded a town called Turkey Town in North Alabama. You already know what it is. You know, when you see that red flag with that star on the crescent, that's the Turk flag. You know what I'm saying? So that flag has always been flying in America. Don't get it messed up. And it's kind of acknowledged by this man being Little Turkey. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, they signed the Treaty of Tellico Blockhouse in 1794, and that ended the Chickamauga Wars. For a time, for a certain amount of time, they ended the main hostilities. Okay, but interestingly enough, it said that after that treaty was signed, everybody respected the Chickamauga Moors so much. The whole Tsalagi state, Barbary state, which is Tunis or Tunisia, they respected the Chickamauga Moors, the military Moors, because again, in the beginning in 1776, everybody wasn't really rocking with the Chickamauga. But everybody had come to respect these brave men for their fighting skills and holding them Europeans back so much. And by the time that treaty got signed in 1794, they said that the Chickamauga, or the so-called lower towns, dominated the so-called Cherokee or Tsalagi affairs for 20 years. So literally, you had to be like a veteran you had to be down with the Chickamauga and a veteran of those Chickamauga Wars that lasted from 1776 to 1794 to really have a high standing in the so-called Tsalagi Cherokee society for 20 years after 1794. You know what I'm saying? Like this, very interesting. So that means at the top of so-called Tsalagi Cherokee society was the niggas. You know what I'm saying? All the way up to a certain point. You know what I'm saying? So all these fake, again, these fake Aboriginal clowns claiming to be some Eastern Band Cherokee, and all these clowns, understand, them clowns that for you fat clown, you know who we're talking about. You fat clown claiming to be an Eastern Band Cherokee and talking down on the Moors all online, bruh. You are literally down with a whole bunch of $5 people who literally back in the day were under the Moors. So you sitting up here talking down on the Moors, but the clown group you claim to be a part of used to be literally under the Moors. You know what I'm saying? Like the Moors was telling them what to do. So what that make you, partner? You know what I'm saying? You's a nobody and a minority and a lame. You know what I'm saying? If you see a real Mo, you just need to get slapped. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing you need. That's the only thing you worthy of is a bitch slap. You know what I'm saying? For real, bro. Like just clown shit, man. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, all right. Now, it said the succeeding chiefs. Okay, some of the sheiks that came, some of the main sheiks of the Chickamauga the Tsalagi state. After the Treaty of Tellico Blockhouse in 1794, were again at first it was Little Turkey, it was Black Fox, it was Path Killer, and these were the some successive sheiks after 1794. Now, I kind of wanted to make a connection though. Look at these names. Look at some of these names. All right, these are just English names. Of course they had Holy's name, but these are what the Europeans called them. But they had Little Turkey. All right, they had Black Fox and Path Killer. And all of these were veterans of the Chickamauga Wars. Now that should tell you right there. Look at those names: Path Killer, Little Turkey, Black Fox. Don't these sound like rap names? Again, man, that culture is nothing new in America. There's nothing new under the sun. They've always had these names like Little Turkey. Don't they remind you of Turk? from Cash Money. You know what I'm saying? Path Killer. I mean, literally. I mean, these are the same type of names that niggas use now in they street names and they rap names. You know what I'm saying? Like this that. When you think of the Chickamauga Tsalagi, I want you to think of a DMX. You know what I'm saying? I want you to think of like a DMX, a hell of Lil Durk or somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like Little Turkey, Lil Durk. You know what I mean? Like any of these people. It's the same culture. Literally the same people and the same culture. It's the moles. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's keep it a buck, man. You know what I'm saying? So, all right. Now, just going through the notes, just going through these notes. It said, okay, the Chickamauga were known to bang on the United States, so they were Barbary Moors. Okay, we just describing the Chickamauga because we just talking about their culture. You know what I'm saying? We go make the distinction between the Chickamauga and the so-called Cherokee, and we're gonna understand that the real so-called Cherokee Tsalagi have always been the Chickamauga. The Cherokee is a usurpation. You know what I'm saying? It's an insurrection in the real Muslim Moorish culture. You know what I'm saying? Of that area. So. They were known to bang on the United States. They took a lot of Christian captives in Indian raids. Again, they won't tell you this, but the Chickamauga of course, they were Muslims practicing Islam. And understand, in the old Islamic culture, if you were a non-believer or infidel, you literally had no rights, and you could legally be enslaved in the old Muslim culture. That's why they would raid the so-called settlers and take a lot of captives and POWs, because under Muslim law, these people were Christians, so they could be enslaved. You know what I'm saying? Like they literally had no rights, and they could be enslaved, and you could do whatever you wanted to do to them. You know, that's just how it was. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying right or wrong. That's just how it was. So they don't like to talk about the Islamic aspect of a lot of these old wars and Indian raids, so-called Indian raids and all of that. It was really the Muslims running up on the Christians and all that. And the Christians would, the settlers and all, they would retaliate. It was back and forth. It was gang. You know what I'm saying? But they do not like to talk about the Islamic aspect of anything in America. You know what I'm saying? But that's because you don't like to talk about it, don't make it no less true. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's see. All right, now we're gonna talk about we talk about running water. This is where Dragon Canoe was running his military operations. It's current day Trenton, Georgia. Now, it said that from Running Water Town, it was just Dragon Canoe's headquarters. He ran military operations on settlements around the southeast. Now, this is the thing. This is the thing that the Moors back then had that a lot of cats don't have now. See, they had places where they had places of refuge. So when you're conducting a war, or you're conducting any type of military operation or guerrilla war or anything like that, you need a place to have refuge. Any successful guerrilla operation has always had a domain where the guerrillas, or the war, or the soldiers or anybody they could kind of go, they could kind of run back to, take a rest, take time, and rearm themselves while they weren't under direct threat. Now, that was the difference between your ancestors. That's why they could successfully engage in warfare military operations against anybody. You know what I'm saying? Because they had places of refuge. Our Mississippian people now literally have no place of refuge. Like we are surrounded on all sides by hostile foreigners. So you can't be successful. You can't be successful in any type of military engagement if you don't have a place of refuge. But the Chickamauga Cherokee, they had places of refuge. They had the mountains locked down. They had the Tennessee mountains, the lower Tennessee mountains locked down. You know what I'm saying? The lower East Tennessee mountains in North Georgia and stuff. They had that locked down, so they could go run their raids and come back to the mountains and come back to the highlands and rearm themselves, replan war room, bang it out. You know what I'm saying? They had places of refuge. See, y'all don't have that now. But see, the difference is, the Chickamauga had nationhood. They had a national cause, and they had allies. See, when you have a nation and a cause, and you can kind of identify with other nations, you will get a lot of help. So that gives you access to places of refuge. See, when you're walking around here claiming color codes and all that stuff, you're not going to get no place of refuge because you have no nation. So no other nation is going to reach out to help you or give you any type of alliance to help supply you militarily or anything, because you're not claiming a nation. You are claiming a color. So you will always be surrounded and under siege under that designation. But your ancestors had a nation, so they could be successful militarily because they were able to congregate and consolidate in places of refuge to run their military campaigns from. That's just something to do the knowledge to, you know what I'm saying, going forward. Now, let's see. They ran their raids as far as Kentucky, Virginia, Indiana. Again, they said the so-called rest of the Cherokee gradually supported the cause. Again, everybody always follows the niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, it's always been that way in America. Whatever the brothers do, and understand the Chickamauga were the brothers. You know what I'm saying? Whatever the brothers do, they hated it at first, but they always end up following it because the brothers always got the frequency of the land on lock. You know what I'm saying? So everybody started supporting the Chickamauga cause because they kept fighting. You know what I'm saying? Again, under the Moslem demonstration, the brothers are able to rally a lot of people to the cause, just under pretenses of being Muslims. You know what I'm saying? Now, it also said, again, this is the benefits of being a national as opposed to being a color or an abo or whatever goofball stuff y'all want to claim. You know what I'm saying? It said that the Chickamauga had a treaty with the governor of West Florida. You know what I'm saying? And West Florida literally is everything, the current state of Georgia, the current state of like Alabama, Mississippi, and all of that. They used to be so-called West Florida, but that's just the European name. They had a different name for it. They had the different Islamic name for all of that, you know what I'm saying? Which again was Tripoli. You know what I'm saying? West Florida essentially is Tripoli. You know what I'm saying? Tripolitania. But it's interesting. It said the Chickamauga had a treaty with West Florida and a so-called Spanish governor. And let's check out what his name was. That's how you know it really was Tripoli. All right. The so-called Spanish governor, they had a treaty of military arms and help, and they had a treaty. The Chickamauga had a treaty to receive military assistance from so-called West Florida. Again, another benefit of being a national, because when you have a nation, you can have international alliance, you can have national alliances, so people will help you. You know what I'm saying? You claim to be so-called Black African American and all these goofball names. You will never have any international help, so you're always gonna get your head. You always gonna get your head busted. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not a national. You just a color. You goofy. You a goofy. You know what I'm saying? No nation wants to help somebody who's stupid enough to claim a color. I'm gonna tell you why. If you goofy enough to just be claiming a color or a title like Aboriginal or some goofy Black Indian or some goofy name or some federally recognized name, you literally cannot be trusted because you have not issued any proclamations. You don't have a code of conduct. You don't have a national constitution or anything that people will see you may try to live by. They will give you some type of certification and, you know what I'm saying, show that you can be trusted, potentially. You know what I'm saying? If you claiming a goofy title or color designation, you can't be trusted. So nobody's going to help you. No international nation with any type of plugs or ties or resources is going to give you anything because you cannot be trusted. They'll give you something, you'll give it over to your oppressors because you're too goofy. You know what I'm saying? You are a child in the minority, so they'll give you the guns and you'll hand it over to your, you know what I'm saying, to your European bosses. You know what I'm saying? That's how goofy y'all are. You know what I'm saying? But these Moors had a nation, so they could get international help. So it said, now let's check out the name of the so-called Spanish governor of West Florida, who was based in Pensacola, aka probably Tripoli. You know what I'm saying? His name was Arturo O'Neill de Tyrone. So that's just his so-called English name. It said de Tyrone. That means he was the day. He was the day at Tripoli. You know what I'm saying? That's who he really was. It was the day. The day down there. So West Florida is really an Islamic Turk. It's an Islamic name. That's an anglicized, Europeanized name. Way there's no such thing as no Spanish West Florida. It's always been just all Moorish down there. You know what I'm saying? It was a Moorish Barbary government down there. And it just said Arturo, the Spanish governor at that time, the 1790s or 1780s, was Arturo O'Neill de Tyrone. So he was a day. They wrote Islam out of history, but they don't want to admit that he was the day in Tripoli down. He was the day down there. So he was the governor, was the day. You had days and bays. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, man. I mean, saying just shut down Goofy's lames and slave wannabes. You know what I'm saying? All day, every day. All right. Now. All right. Moving right along, you know what I'm saying? We're going to get through this. I know these things go long, but there's a lot of real good information. Now, we're going to talk about the revolt. We already talked about how the Chickamauga Wars essentially ended in a ceasefire. You know what I'm saying? And the Moors essentially run in and kind of forced the United States' hand, and they had to sign a ceasefire treaty to kind of tone down the hostilities because it was kind of a stalemate, but the Chickamauga were successful in enforcing the border and keeping the settlers from coming across. And the United States, even though they tried, they couldn't really do nothing about it because the Chickamauga were too strong. Their military skills, their raids, and they were just too. They defeated at the time. So they had to sign a treaty, you know what I'm saying? Which is essentially a treaty. The treaty that the United States signed was essentially a treaty with Tunis. Not Tunis or Tennessee, but it was essentially a treaty with Tunis, you know what I'm saying? Tunisia, you know what I mean? So, but after a while, this is when the subversion happened. This is how they were eventually able to get the Moorish government up out of the area of Tennessee and North Georgia and all of that. It was the subversion. So they had eventually they had a revolt of the upper towns. Okay, we're gonna talk about the revolt of the upper town. This is when the so-called Cherokee nonsense started. You know what I'm saying? So after the war, okay, let's see. So they had a revolt by the young chief of the upper towns. Now, interesting thing happened after the war in 1799. The lower Tsalagi towns were visited by Moravian brethren, and the Moravian missions. You know what I'm saying? So, and some of the so-called Cherokee Tsalagi down there, they allowed the Moravians to open up mission schools on their turf. You know what I'm saying? And they said one of the main chiefs of one of the towns down there, his name was James Van, and now he allowed some of the first Christian mission schools to be opened up, on so-called Cherokee turf. Now, it said James Van. These are important figures now. James Van, Major Ridge. And we're gonna do a few drops on some of these people because these are important people in the history of the so-called Cherokee, which has a lot to do. If you're from the South, you're from so-called Georgia, Alabama, these areas, South Carolina now. You probably got some Tsalagi. You may have some Tsalagi blood, so this does affect you. This knowledge does affect you. You know what I'm saying? So, but James Van, Major Ridge, and Major Hicks, they were from the upper towns. You know what I'm saying? Now these brothers, these cats were they were mixed bloods. So they were they were of like Scottish, so-called Tsalagi heritage. So they were kind of mixed. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the Scottish people. They came into we're gonna talk about it, but it came into like Cherokee turf. A lot of those Scottish people, they were kind of, they were from the Highlanders, so they were kind of their culture was similar to ours. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of them at that time, originally they were more Asiatic. You know what I'm saying? The Scottish Highlanders. That's King James. He was an Asiatic man. You know what I'm saying? He was from He was from the Scottish Highlanders. That's where his bloodline. So those Scottish Islanders, a lot of them started coming over here. But understand, these people had mixed families. So you might have had a kind of a Mississippian or Negroid-looking Scottish Highlander, but he might have had a mixed family. So you might have had a more European Caucasoid member of his same family. So these people came over and they started mingling with us. So a lot of these people, you know what I'm saying, they might have came into the turf or whatever, married into the families and all that because they were kind of coming from the same culture. So we kind of culturally identify from it. It ain't no different from in hip hop. You might have the Wiggers, you know what I'm saying, like the so-called white niggas. You know what I'm saying, like these are the Scottish Highlanders. They were mixed families. So you might have had some dark skinned, copper colored ones. You might have had some straight up Caucasoid looking ones, but they were coming over here, integrating into our culture. You know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, sometimes when that happens, it kind of blurs the line. So, and then when the United States was starting to come up, they preferred to do business with the lighter skinned people. And these lighter skinned people these mixed breeds tend to have more of an affinity with with their Europeans that were dealing with the United States. So that kind of watered down the militancy of a lot of the Moorish nations. You know what I'm saying? Going, in the interior of the country, because over the years, so many people had kind of immigrated and kind of came amongst us and started marrying in, and kind of might have became sub chiefs in the turf or whatever. So they might have had some sway. So at a certain time, they might have, a lot of these people kind of revolted against the real Moors. You know what I'm saying? And the United States would take them and sign treaties with them, like the mixed breed, the mulattoes, in the so-called Barbary states, and they would try to say those treaties were valid, but the broader population, the real Moors was like, nah, man, that stuff ain't valid. So that caused a lot of civil wars and chaos after the Revolutionary War with the United States and all that. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that was happening. But anyway, James Vaughn, Major Ridge, Hicks, they were from the upper towns. And it said these people were more progressive so-called Cherokees. So that's when the so-called Cherokee term starts to come in. These mixed breed progressive so-called Cherokees, they're the ones who started taking on the term of Cherokee with the English speaking people who were coming in. You know what I'm saying? So that's where the whole Cherokee insurrection and subversion came into the Tsalagi Chickamauga Nation. That's when the Cherokee started coming up. You know what I'm saying? So So from now on, we're gonna do the knowledge. The Cherokees are the more European acting so-called Tsalagi. They don't wear the turbans. They wear suits and ties. You know what I'm saying? They just European. And the $5 Indians, the ones on the reservations now, these are the Cherokees. The Tsalagis, the Chickamauga are the Moorish Americans. The present-day Moorish Americans. That's the Tsalagi and the Chickamauga. Never signed on treaties. They maintain their culture to this day. The Cherokees are the European sellouts. So you goofies sitting up here claiming to be some fake Cherokees and all that nonsense. Yeah, man. Y'all mean for real, man. I mean, just kill yourself for real, man. Just kill yourself. Now, let's see. We're gonna talk about the Cherokee Revolt. This is when the Cherokee subversion happened. And again, they quieted the militant Moors down by signing that treaty in 1794. You could tell the fix was in. They said, we're gonna get these Moors, we're gonna get them up out of here by doing business with these mixed breeds. That was always how the United States was able to advance and get sway. Because the militant Moors was never playing no games. The militant Moors looking like me, the Red Sticks, the Tsalagi, the Chickamauga, under the fire, the red chiefs and all that, was never playing no games with these people. But we had adopted so many people into our, we had let so many people come amongst us. It ain't no different from hip hop. Where originally the so-called hip hop culture was just all, it was all niggas. You know what I'm saying? But over time, everybody came into it. That's how it always was in these cultures. People are always coming in and watering down everything because everybody follows us. You know what I'm saying? Everybody follows the Mississippian man. You know what I'm saying? Whatever he creates, everybody absorbs themselves into. They just follow us wherever we go. And unfortunately, over time, I guess a lot of brothers let a lot of that stuff go to their head. They just let everybody come amongst them, want to mess with all the women and all that. You know what I'm saying? Just that's how hip hop got watered down. That's how the so-called Cherokee thing got watered down. And all the fake 5 civilized tribes, that's all of that stuff got watered down because everybody wanted to come around the Thuggees and adopt this free Moorish culture. You know what I'm saying? So, talk about the revolt. So, okay, so in 1801, say around the time of 1801, okay, the upper towns are like, around the Little Pigeon River, up in like upper East Tennessee, you know what I'm saying, going up towards Knoxville, that area. Those are the upper towns. The lower towns like Chattanooga, these areas, North Georgia, these towns. You know what I'm saying? So it said the upper towns separated in 1801. They separated from the lower towns, and they kind of they started to have a campaign in their towns, and they created their own little council. The campaign in the upper towns was for assimilation. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to be more European. They wanted to adopt European land ownership practices. They wanted to set up their little individual plantations because in the Tsalagi culture, it was a grand trust. So the most beloved man, the grand sheik, he would kind of settle all disputes, and everything was kind of commonly owned by the whole nation. You know what I'm saying? There was no such thing as like individual land plots or ownership or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? It was all divided up on the holy domain, whole different culture. But the Europeans was practicing individual lot ownership because that's going more corporate. Because it's trust me, it's easier to control people who are on an individual game than people who are on a group game. So that's always been the play where they wanted to get everybody to have individual farmsteads, individual homesteads under their own little names and all that, because you're basically breaking up nations doing that stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's easier to control people when they're divided like that. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole play of corporatocracy. So, all right. So the upper towns around 1801, but of course they wanted to be European, so they started getting little payouts and all that. But it's funny because these clowns they said gradually through the early part of the 1800s, these clowns had to start moving south to the lower towns. These upper town clowns and mixed breeds and people in the upper towns, they started to have to move south because since they wanted to be more European, they started letting the Europeans come amongst them. They started getting played, and they had to end up ceding a lot of their land. They was getting their money, but they had to give a lot of their land up. So now they want to come down to the Moorish turf in the lower towns, and they brought a lot of the nonsense with them. This is when everybody became the Cherokees. It was the upper town revolt. It started in 1801 with a lot of the mixed breeds and mixed European so-called Cherokees. That's when it became Cherokee and got away from Tsalagi and Chickamauga. It was the subversion of the Moorish rule in the so-called Tunis, Cherokee, Tsalagi nation. You know what I'm saying? So, let's see. it said that they ceded their land. They started letting missions be set up in their areas on the upper towns, and it said that, of course, George Washington and these people, they said they wanted to teach a civilized life, Christian civilized lifestyle to the Cherokees. A lot of the upper towns they were accepting that nonsense because, again, these people hate Islam. So to them, Islam is uncivilized. You know what I'm saying? So, but Christianity, corporatocracy, individual land ownership, and all that is civilized. You know what I'm saying? Pretty much letting yourself bow down to kings and popes, that's being civilized. But only answering to God, that's uncivilized to these people. You know what I'm saying? Crazy. It's just crazy, the logic. It said the majority of the lower Cherokee remained in lower towns. They again, the lower towns, the old Chickamauga veterans, they dominated politics for 20 years. And they were way more conservative than the upper towns. Now, John Watts, it said John Watts, he led the okay, we're gonna kind of go through the succession of sheiks, talking about the Cherokee subversion. So we know that John Watts, he took over from when Dragon Canoe died. He said that he led the whole Tsalagi nation as the most beloved man of the great sheik of the Tsalagi until 1807, until his death. Okay, and then it said from the time of his death, he said he moved the Cherokee capital to Willstown because he wanted to be close to his Muskogee allies to the south, which is the niggas to the south. You know what I'm saying? In Georgia, Alabama, and all that area. So then it said Doublehead, a Cherokee sheik called Doublehead. He became the main sheik of the Cherokee after John Watts died in 1807. So, and again, these are all brothers. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get it messed up. These are full-blooded brothers. A full-blooded Tsalagi, or so-called Indian, is a so-called Mississippian. All these other people are the half-bloods and mixed breeds and all these other clowns. You know what I'm saying? Like, anytime they say full-blood, they talk about a nigga. That's just keeping it a buck. You know what I'm saying? So, Doublehead took over, but he took over in 1807 after John Watts died. But this is where the subversion happened right here. It said Doublehead was assassinated by the Ridge and Alexander Saunders and John Rogers. These are other Cherokees. He was assassinated in 1807. So right there, that's where the whole subversion happened, because Doublehead was the last militant Chickamauga Tsalagi full blood to lead the nation. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was a real brother. He was a real Mo. You know what I'm saying? But these half breeds, they said he was assassinated by some of these half breeds from the upper towns in 1807. Okay, we're gonna do the knowledge to that, because again, that's when Tsalagi Chickamauga became Cherokee, because these people kind of came up and started taking over the leadership, because they were mixed breed, kind of more watered down, more European. So they were more so acculturated to dealing with the United States. They wanted to kind of adapt assimilation naturally, because they're more European. They're mixed breeds, mulattoes and stuff like that. That's the subversion. You know what I'm saying? All right, so now, okay, it said the Ridge, Alexander Saunders, and John Rogers assassinated. Now, let's talk about John Rogers. You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to talk about how John Rogers was really a Whigger. You know what I'm saying? Because again, these people were coming around us and coming into our nation, but the Moles were still running everything, but we were letting a lot of these other people kind of come in, kind of be like us and be around us. You know what I'm saying? So, this is how it backfired on our people later on. You know what I'm saying? These people are always going to sell you out. They have a history of just, you know what I'm saying? So it said John Rogers was a European trader. He went west with Dragon Canoe in 1777. So he was a European. No, we don't know his, he could have been light-skinned Caucasoid, or he could have been mixed or whatever. But he went west with Dragon Canoe in 1777. But he ended up assassinating a real Moor, helping to assassinate a Moor like 20 years later. You know what I'm saying? So after this European got adopted into the tribe, he gonna sit up there and assassinate a full-blooded Moor 20 years later. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the type of subversion. These people came amongst us as like refugees, trying to be like us, trying to learn our ways and all that. And later on, they ended up leading an insurrection within our own nation. You know what I'm saying? You always gotta watch these people, man. You know what I'm saying? All right. So now after it said they assassinated Doublehead, it said the Council of the so-called Cherokee reorganized in 1810. Now, this is the whole revolt right here. This is when they became the so-called Cherokees, not the Tsalagi. It said by 1809, okay, this is after Doublehead got killed. This is 1809, 1810. Many of the so-called Cherokees of the lower town were assimilated. It said James Van, he was one of the ones who helped to orchestrate the killing of Doublehead, who was an old Chickamauga Moor. And James Van was a mixed man, you know what I'm saying? It said he became one of the wealthiest men east of the Mississippi River. He was a major planter. So again, even though he might have been a mixed man, you know he wasn't no straight Caucasian. You know what I'm saying? Like no straight European. He might have been mixed or whatever, but you know he was a little bit copper colored. So he just said he was one of the wealthiest planters east of the Mississippi. So that goes to show all this fake slave narrative and Kunta Kinte nonsense we've been given about these straight Caucasoid, these straight, European, Anglo-Saxon looking people being some slave masters and some slaves and owning all the plantation is all capped. It always was, man. It just said that James Van, who was a mixed man, you know what I'm saying, mixed Cherokee, Scottish man, was one of the wealthiest planters east of the Mississippi. You know what I'm saying? So who was owning all the plantations and who was the wealthy planters? Who was the wealthy planter class? Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? All this always been capped, man. It's always been capped. You know what I mean? It would have been, he would have looked like what's the brother's name? Stephen Curry. He would have looked, a brother like James Van probably looked just like Stephen Curry. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, you know what I'm saying? Aisha, it was him, imagine Steve Curry and Aisha Curry being one of the wealthiest planters east of the Mississippi. That's exactly what they look like. James Van, I guarantee it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's mixed man, European mulatto looking people. You know what I mean? All right, so check it out. Okay, so yeah, so that's how again they started. A lot of the mixed breeds and you're half Europeans and mulattoes and the Cherokee. They started, they started to trying to help. They started to do a lot of assassinations and help get rid of the old Moors that was leading to Tsalagi, so they could kind of take over the leadership. And you would already know a lot of these people was getting down with the Europeans, and these people were probably coming into them hidden hand organizations and all of that. And you know what I'm saying, they was getting money, so they had to get rid of the old Moors. You know what I'm saying? So these people were helping to assassinate and get rid of the old Moors so they could form the fake Cherokee. And again, it was all a play because the Europeans these are the people who did all these treaties and ceded all this land to the Europeans after a while. You know what I'm saying? So Cherokees were the sellouts. The Cherokee were the insurrection within the Tsalagi. The Tsalagi Chickamauga are the real ones. Always has been. The Cherokee was always the sellout class. You know what I'm saying? Now, it said after 1816, after the Barbary Wars, of course, leaders such as Talantski, Degadata, John Jolly Richard, John Brown, Sequoia, etc. They all sold land and got territory in like Arkansas, Oklahoma, and all of that. You know what I'm saying? So, they said they saw a removal coming. So they were some of the early Cherokees around the time in 1820 to start just moving west. Because understand, west of the Mississippi, the so-called Mississippi at that time, it was still all Barbary country. It was all Islam. It was all Muslim Turk. That's why they call it so-called Indian territory. That's just a reconstructed term. It was still just Moorish land out there. And we're gonna do the knowledge at some point to all the old mosques and all the old temples and everything that was all in the west. You know what I'm saying? Because that was still the old Moorish Barbary zone at this time. Around the time of the 1830s, 1820s, it was still Moorish turf west of the Mississippi River, all of it. It was still all Morocco. There was no European jurisdiction west, but the Europeans were getting the Barbary governments dissolved east of the Mississippi River. That's what the whole Indian removal mess was about. You know what I'm saying? So and then another thing, as you see people like this going west and getting territory, I want you to think about the Tulsas. The Tulsas and the so-called Black Wall Streets. These are the people that started going out there and setting this type of stuff up. You know what I'm saying? Even back in the 1820s, these are the people that came out there with all the money they made, all the land they sold, the wealth, and all that stuff. These are the people who controlled all them so-called black Indian towns in Oklahoma and in Arkansas and all that stuff. These are the people that did that. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no such thing as no Black Wall Street, man. It's Moorish Wall Street or it's Indian Wall Street. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no such thing as no Black Wall Street. Get that up out the paint. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Now, let's just talk about Major Ridge. Because Major Ridge is one of the people who helped assassinate Doublehead and get rid of the old Moorish chiefs in Tsalagi. So, said Major Ridge, of course, he's a mixed man, but he assisted Andrew Jackson, of course, in the Red Stick War. But one thing it said about Major Ridge, and this how you know that if you listen to a clown out here, a fake academic or whatever, he don't know what he's talking about, because it said Major Ridge literally never ever spoke English in his life. You know what I'm saying? So what language is everything documented in the South? You know what I'm saying? In the West, in real American history, is if Major Ridge never spoke English, but he lead the whole armies, and he lead cavalry. He's a military. He's like a top military man. What language were they speaking? You know what I'm saying? Now, we'll come back to Major Ridge. We're just gonna talk about some of the. We're gonna talk about some of the main. We're gonna talk about some of the main sheiks and their stories and everything, and kind of drive it home before we shut it down. Now, it said we're gonna talk about Little Turkey. Okay. Little Turkey was the first beloved man. He was let's see. It said Little Turkey. Little Turkey was one of the people Dragon Canoe kind of put in charge after he died in 1792. He was the first beloved man of the Tsalagi after 1792. Now, which is essentially a grand sheik. Now, he said that the U.S. never acknowledged him as the leader, of course, because he's a real Mo. You know what I'm saying? They said they acknowledged a man called Hanging Ma. Little Turkey, because they didn't want to acknowledge the militant Moors, so they tried. The United States has always been trying to. The United States was even back then was trying to set up their little puppets. You know what I'm saying? Who was going to help them further their agenda. They never wanted to deal with Moors like that. You know what I'm saying? Real militant Moors who wasn't going to give them an inch. You know what I'm saying? That's what the whole it was going on way back then. You know what I'm saying? Where they put their little puppet people in place to act the part and all of that, and subvert. You know what I'm saying? It said he founded Turkeytown in northern Alabama, which is an old 25-mile village, and interestingly enough, Turkeytown is currently underwater. You know what I'm saying? Don't they do that to all the so-called old black towns? It's currently underwater. You know what I'm saying? The old site of Turkeytown. Let's see. All right, so, and then, let's see. All right, we was just talking about Little Turkey. So, let's talk about Doublehead. We talked about how Doublehead was assassinated. He was one of the original Chickamauga Moors who was assassinated by some of the half-breeds in 1807. Now, we're just gonna talk about his history. Now, Doublehead, he had a brother named Old Tassel. You know what I'm saying? Old Tassel was actually an old grand sheik of the Tsalagi in the 1780s. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's do the knowledge to the name Old Tassel. Now, again, what do tassels swing from? Don't they swing from the fezzes? Why would his name be Old Tassel? Just an interesting name. You know what I'm saying? Let's just keep it a buck. More than likely, he was wearing that red fez. You know what I'm saying? Old Tassel. But Doublehead, he was an Overhill Tsalagi. He was from one of the Overhill towns. You know what I'm saying? Up in Tennessee, North Carolina, that area. His brother Old Tassel he said in the beginning of the war, in the beginning of the Chickamauga Wars in 1776, he wasn't really like that militant, but he would participate here and there, but he wasn't super militant because he was kind of following his brother Old Tassel. It said Old Tassel was trying to keep peace between the American revolutionary people and the Cherokee, but of course Dragon Canoe wasn't with all that. But it said Doublehead, he became a militant warrior in the Chickamauga Wars under Dragon Canoe because the settlers did some messed up, they did some coward type of shit. They murdered Old Tassel, his brother Old Tassel, under a flag of truce. You know what I'm saying? And what happened was Old Tassel, I guess, they had it, it was always gang banging. So some settlers might have got killed and they wanted to kill people in retaliation or whatever. But what they ended up doing was they ended up inviting the man Old Tassel, who's a pacifist sheik. You know what I'm saying? He's literally peaceful. He never took up arms against the settlers or anything. But they invited him to a so-called negotiation under a flag of truce, and they just straight up killed him. So you know what I'm saying? Like that's some cowardly type of stuff. So they said that pissed Doublehead off, and he actually joined. He became a militant warrior. He started, he joined the Chickamauga Wars as an active Moor against the settlers. So they said that he Doublehead. Now he led an assault on we just talking about the history, his military history. He said he led an assault on White's Fort. And he ran his operations from a town called Coldwater in northern Alabama. You know what I'm saying? And he said, interestingly enough, he said that was Chickasaw turf. And the so-called Chickasaw at that time, they were not really, they were pro-American, so they weren't really, they were kind of neutral, so they weren't really backing the Chickamauga. But it said that Doublehead set up his base of operations in Chickasaw turf, and the way he was able to get the local Chickasaw sheik to kind of allow him to do his thing was he married both of his daughters to that Chickasaw sheik. You know what I'm saying? And the Chickasaw sheik's name was George Colbert. Okay? So again, I've been telling y'all, like, a lot of y'all got these English names, and these people are interchangeable. They still could have been practicing Islam and dealing with the old culture, but they might have had so-called English names. Literally said the Chickasaw sheiks that he married Doublehead married his daughters to was his name was George Colbert. So that was probably a brother, just a regular brother, you know what I'm saying? But he just had an English name. So let's see. And it also said that Doublehead's band, they had Muskogee, Shawnee, and Renegade Chickasaw. You know what I'm saying? In it. But he led a famous assault on White's Fort. He visited George Washington in 1792 after Dragging Canoe's death. He participated in a famous assault, okay? And we're gonna show you how well organized these Moors were. It said in 1792, John Watts led a large campaign with cavalry. These brothers had cavalry and everything. You know what I'm saying? They was not no Rudy Poos. They had Moorish cavalry. They was on horses doing their thing. You know what I'm saying? John Watts led a large campaign with cavalry. A three-pronged assault. On settler towns. You know what I'm saying? They destroyed a whole bunch of settler towns in 1792 on this military campaign. It said they also raided and did a famous raid. This is John Watts. They did a famous raid in southwest Kentucky. And they did a lot of gruesome type of brutal stuff to the people they killed. They mutilated a lot of bodies and all type of stuff. And what happened in this particular battle? See, the more you can't really judge people because the war stuff just gets ugly and it gets brutal. So it ain't no telling what was going on. But they said in this particular battle, people like the Ridge and John Van, they kind of started to disaffect from the Chickamauga, because they said the Chickamauga in that particular battle, they were real gruesome. They were cutting up bodies, chopping up bodies, doing all type of gruesome stuff. And they said that what's the name? They said that Doublehead actually chopped up, he took a little European boy and scalped him, you know what I'm saying? And James Van and the original people were trying to save the little European boy, but Doublehead snatched the boy and scalped him. It was a 12-year-old boy. So they said even at that time, a lot of these mixed breeds and all these people were kind of like, man, this, not right or wrong. It probably was a gruesome thing to see, but understand, war can do some messed up things to your mind, you know what I'm saying, when it's really on like that. So, but they said that like the Ridge and some of these half breeds and these people from the upper town started to kind of disaffect. They were like, nah, I don't know about these Chickamauga, man. I don't know about this. This is not the way. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, it said this is after 1792. Now it said in 1793, Watts sent an envoy to Knoxville on they would even though they were at war, they were sending envoys and doing negotiations. So they said Watts sent the envoy to Knoxville to negotiate with the governor of Tennessee, the Tennessee Territory or whatever, the European governor, and they got attacked. This is a friendly envoy now. They got attacked by some European settlers, and they got pissed because a lot of people got wounded. I think John Watts got wounded himself. I mean, this is a peaceful mission, so the import, it was kind of cowardly. Like, this is the type of stuff that the settlers would do. They would attack civilians. They would, they would just do all type of cowardly stuff that the Moors didn't like. You know what I'm saying? The Moors was all about bravery and courage and battle, but the Europeans and the settlers, they would do all type of cowardly ambush attacks on women and children and peaceful people and civilians and stuff like that. That's just how they got down. So they said that after they attacked the peaceful envoy in 1793, some European militia attacked them. They had a fake trial, and the United States Europeans, they let the perpetrators of that attack off in a fake farce of a trial. So of course that pissed the Chickamauga off. So they said Watts retaliated. And it said Watts retaliated, and they did something called Covent Station Massacre. And because they were about to run a whole siege on Knoxville. You know what I'm saying? And so again, this is the difference between you and your ancestors. See, y'all got stuff like police brutality now, where they'll kill like an innocent Mississippian and all that. And a lot of cats will riot, tear up buildings, and do all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? A march and pray or whatever. Man, your ancestors, they believed in blood. They believed in eye for eye, tooth for tooth, blood for blood. You know what I'm saying? So literally they the Chickamauga Moors retaliated after the European settlers attacked some peaceful Chickamauga on a diplomatic mission. They retaliated by sending a whole Moorish force to do a siege on Knoxville, and they did a whole massacre of Europeans at a fort called Covent Station. You know what I'm saying? So this is how gangster your ancestors were. They didn't believe in no marching and praying. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference between Islam and what cats are dealing with now. It's blood for blood. You know what I'm saying? So they literally did a whole massacre because they let some Europeans off for killing some Moors. You know what I'm saying? It just back in those days it was real, man. Your ancestors was not playing. You know what I'm saying? Again, that's why they had to get rid of that Moorish culture, because that Moorish culture don't believe in no marching and praying and get taken advantage of. It believes in blood for blood. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, this is really what led to Doublehead getting killed years later. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the animosity that the mixed breeds like Van had with Doublehead, people like Doublehead, who's a full blood, was when they did that massacre at Covent Station. Even though those mixed bloods from the upper town and these people, these half European so-called Cherokee, they were a part of that. They were a part of the retaliation for that attack that they did on Watts' envoy in 1793. They were a part of the retaliation when they did the massacre at Covent Station. But it said that Van got mad at Doublehead because he scalped the little boy during that massacre. Like, the boy was trying to get away. And for the rest of his life, they said that Van called Doublehead baby killer. You know what I'm saying? For the rest of his life. They said a lot of the mixed breeds from the upper towns, they really were mad. They were really kind of upset with the Chickamauga, you know what I'm saying, for that, for doing stuff like that, for killing innocent people and doing all that. But understand, the Europeans had attacked a peaceful mission and killed some Chickamauga out of nowhere. So in retaliation, they said, well, it's blood for blood. That's just the real culture. I'm not saying right or wrong, but I'm just saying a lot of those Europeans couldn't take that. A lot of those Europeans and mixed breeds couldn't deal with that old real culture where it's eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. You don't play no games with people, especially when they let those Europeans off for killing innocent Moors. You know what I'm saying? They let them off in a fake trial for killing innocent Moors. Now to this day, they don't let Europeans off for killing innocent Moors, and all people do is a fake riot, and they do a fake riot and they march and pray. These Moors retaliated with blood. It was getting in blood back then. You know what I'm saying? So just showing the difference between a lot of y'all and y'all ancestors. It was real. But it said that after Doublehead scalped the little boy during that retaliatory hit, that started kind of a lifelong feud between Van and his people and Doublehead. You know what I'm saying? Again, they assassinated Doublehead in 1807, and that's really when the Cherokees mixed breed subversion took a hold in the Tsalagi area. You know what I'm saying? So let's see. Yeah, we almost to the end, to finish line. This is a lot of real information. Now, it's also said that just doing the knowledge. After the peace came and all of that, a lot of these people it's people like Van and Doublehead. After they started doing deals with the United States, because these were still like the head. These was all of these people, even though whether they were full blood or mixed breed. Again, they were veterans of the Chickamauga War, so they were kind of like heroes and leaders and respected leaders within the Tsalagi nation. You know what I'm saying? So they were the ones who were tasked with doing a lot of the treaties and stuff and negotiations with a lot of the Indian agents in the United States from 1794 until like the 1820s. So it said that people like Van who were Chickamauga vets, they got rich. They did a lot of land deals with the United States and backhand deals, and they were getting money by kind of leasing land, letting the United States rent their land and all. Because again, these brothers control thousands of square miles of acres of land. You know what I'm saying? Being leaders of the Tsalagi. So they started, this kind of resulted in a lot of their downfall. They started getting all this money by letting people rent their land, lease their land, divide it up and all of that. But that was, you know what I'm saying? They started getting a lot of backhand deals and kind of getting away from that Muslim communal culture. Because they was getting that money. So this is how you had a lot of brothers and sisters who owned a lot of land, coming out of a lot of these wars. They started getting rich, leasing land and doing land deals with the United States. But over time, that kind of resulted in their downfall. You know what I'm saying? Because the United States would make treaties and stuff, but they would dishonor you know what I'm saying? They would do backhand deals and dishonor these treaties and ultimately get you to seize your entire piece of land. You know what I'm saying? By just by continuing to press you. You know what I'm saying? So just doing the knowledge, it said that, the traders, the original traders and the British people who, back in the time when it was Britain before the United States, just interesting notes. The traders and the original British who were dealing with the Cherokees were Scottish Highlanders, and we already talked about how that was the old so-called nigger culture of Britain, the Scottish Highlander culture. You know what I'm saying? So it would make sense that they would be the original people to kind of interbreed and intermix with the so-called Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the mixed breeds of these people come from these Scottish Islanders who were very much related to our people. But the thing is, these Scottish Islander families were very, very much mixed. So they were coming over here with a hood pass, but they were bringing a lot of more mixed mulatto type of people within their families, and that kind of spilled over to the top to Tsalagi families as well, which resulted later on down the line in a lot of people switching sides. It is what it is because they have more of a European heritage and affinity to the United States because the United States was European. You know what I'm saying? So. So okay. Now it's again, we know that all the mixed breeds eventually became the Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? The new Cherokee that kind of came up after 1807 after they got rid of Doublehead. They signed these mixed breeds became the kind of the treaty party. They became known as the treaty party because, again, a lot of them started getting rich. They started getting money. They became the cultural assimilated elite of the Cherokee, and they was getting money by doing all these back deals with the United States and all that stuff. These were a lot of mixed breed. They might have been Steph Curry looking type of cats. You know what I'm saying? Mixed. They were just mixed breed people, but they eventually signed a Treaty of New Dakota in 1835, and they essentially ceded the entire Cherokee, so-called Tsalagi nation land to the so-called United States. You know what I'm saying? To go on the trusteeship, and they agreed to move west. And these were the mixed breed of revolted Cherokee, and you already know these were assimilationists. A lot of them weren't wearing their turbans anymore. They weren't really dealing with the Muslim culture. They were wearing their suits and ties. They weren't wearing hats. You know what I'm saying? They had their heads exposed and all that, which is not the old Muslim culture. So a lot of these people, they started just, they're the ones who kind of did a lot of the deals and land sessions with the United States later on. A lot of them weren't the original full bloods that did that. But interestingly enough, let's see. Interestingly enough, the after they did the Treaty of New Dakota in 1805, a lot of the Ridge and all of these mixed breed people, they all moved west to Oklahoma. But they said they had a lot of money because they were doing a lot of these back deals with the United States, getting land. A lot of them had plantations. They had a lot of money. But they said a lot of them were in danger. They went west because they were, the United States was threatening to confiscate their land and their plantations and just give it to the new settler squatters. You know what I'm saying? So again, understand a lot of the original plantations, a lot of the original lands, a lot of the original towns, and all of that. Again, a lot of these new Europeans and immigrants, they literally walked into these places. They didn't build nothing because a lot of these people, the original owners of these, whether they were kind of assimilated or not, the original owners were either mixed or full-blooded. Moors. You know what I'm saying? They owned all these plantations, these palaces, these houses, these homes. They were the ones who had the land titles, so they owned the majority of the land. It just is what it is. So these new Europeans that were coming through after so-called removal, which all it was the Barbary states dissolved. They were just literally walked into these places. It was given to them. They land lotteries. These people ain't worked to earn nothing in this country. You know what I'm saying? Like literally they have worked, built mainly nothing. You know what I'm saying? None of the old America was built by these people. You know what I'm saying? Like they literally walked into this stuff. You know what I mean? But it did say that the majority of the Ridge and all the people who signed the Treaty of New Dakota in 1835, literally every last one of them except one of those guys was killed in Oklahoma for violating the Tsalagi, the Cherokee blood law. You know what I'm saying? Where you were under no circumstances where you were supposed to sell the seed holy land. You were supposed to die. You were supposed to die for it. That's old Moorish culture right there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. Man, it's a lot of information. I just wanted to kind of go over the knowledge of the Tsalagi and do it. And then, like, I'm 2 hours strong, but it is what it is. But I just kind of wanted to go over the Tsalagi, the difference between the Cherokee and the Tsalagi, and kind of just do the knowledge to that because there's a lot of confusion. And I wanted to link I wanted to show that the Tsalagi and the Chickamauga are literally the present-day Moorish Americans. That's literally who they are. Because the Chickamauga never ceded nothing. They never signed no treaty with nobody that ceded nothing, but the Cherokee did. So a lot of that stuff is really invalid. But it's only valid because people were forced to take on these fake names and these fake titles. If you would claim Chickamauga or Tsalagi, you literally have the blood titles and the rights to the entire East Tennessee, North Georgia, and all of that, but you're going by the wrong name. But a lot of y'all and goofies online are talking about some damn Cherokee or Ananui or whatever they talking about. They talking about some indigenous DG, all type of nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Y'all are not claiming the right names. And that's why Noble Drew Ali is the truth, because he literally put you back on your square. You know what I'm saying? The Tsalagi, Chickamauga are literally the present-day Moorish Americans, so they are the ones with the titles. You know what I'm saying? They are the ones with the land claims. Cherokees and all these people signed fake treaties, and they all got killed for it. You know what I'm saying? Because they violated blood law. So none of that stuff is really valid. It's all fake. So going by these fake, federally recognized 5 civilized tribe terms, again, that puts you under corporate jurisdiction and under the rulership of all of these fake treaties. But none of that stuff is really legal or legally binding. You know what I'm saying? But if you're going by the fake names, I guess it is. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's why the Moors are the truth. You dig? Let's see. Now, just do a little bit, just kind of some notes. As far as the ridge, major ridge, you know what I'm saying? Again, it said a lot. It said around the time right before, because the Cherokee were so-called removed, and the Trail of Tears happened about 1838. So again, that's more blows to the fake slave narrative, because if they only got the Cherokee, whether they was mixed breed or full-blooded or whatever, if they only removed them in 1838, bro, there was no time to run to all these fake black slaves and all that stuff by some Europeans all through the South. It's always been capped. But it did say around the time after the subversion of the murder of Doublehead and the subversion after 1807, when they formed a whole new council and reorganized everything under the fake Cherokee name, with the European mixed breed chiefs and all of that from the upper towns kind of taking control after 1807. It said division started to arise between the acculturated elite and the majority of the Cherokee who were traditionalists and favored keeping the traditionalist ways. Now, all that means is, this is literally all that means, is the clowns who signed all these fake treaties with the federal government and agreed to go on these fake $5 Indian terms. These are literally like a small group of the massive of the real Tsalagi Cherokee. The real Tsalagi Cherokee are literally the niggas that's still in these places now. You know what I'm saying? That means most of our people did not go with all that nonsense. They stayed right where they was at. They kept it traditional. You know what I'm saying? And you can tell because again, if you look at pictures of our people right after the Civil War, right before they got forced into these re-education schools and all of that, you literally see all of the women in the South, all of the Mississippian women in the South dressing in traditional garbs, head wraps, You see the brothers with their vests on, with their bucket hats and all that stuff. These are the old Tsalagi, Muskogee, Shawnee, these are the old Moslems of the South. They still was wearing their garbs right around the time of the so-called Civil War, right after the Civil War. They were still kind of dressed as Muslim. These are the people who stayed right where they was at. They didn't go with these fake $5 clowns to so-called Oklahoma on these fake federally recognized terms. A lot of the people who went, well, a lot of these mixed breed Europeans, you know what I'm saying, type of people, the niggas, the majority of the niggas stayed right where they was at, you know what I'm saying, and did not go for none of that stuff. Again, that's why, again, the present day Moorish Americans, and by default, the people under the 5 and the 6, people y'all want to call thugs, the GDs, the Vice Lords, the Bloods, the Crips, all these people, again, a lot of people are kind of mentally messed up now, so they're not really moving like nationally like they should. But these people are the people who never gave it up and they never signed no deals. You know what I'm saying? That's why we say the 5 and the 6. That's the real culture. Most people stayed right where they was at. Everything just had to go underground after that. That's why you got your present day street gangs and all that. But a lot of that stuff is the real. It's the real Moorish Americans. These are the people who are the real Tsalagi. They stayed right where they was at. It just said the culturated elite, which is the sellouts, the hidden hand people, the sellouts. They're the ones who signed all these fake deals, and they're the Cherokee now. The Tsalagi Chickamauga are the niggas. They still right where they was at. You know what I'm saying? So if you go to Chattanooga now, you go to Knoxville now, you go to any of these places, you know what I'm saying? You go to Huntsville, Alabama, you go to any of these places, Birmingham, Atlanta, wherever you want, whatever town you want to go to, and you go to the hood, so-called hood, or the so-called black side of town with the indigenous Mississippians. These are the real ones. They never went nowhere. You know what I'm saying? They never, and you can tell because, again, these people are disenfranchised. They didn't sign no deals, so of course they stayed right where they was at. So they eventually got disenfranchised because, you know what I'm saying, they kept their Moorish culture kind of intact, and again after the Civil War they got forced out of it. So it is what it is. But always understand the difference between the real and the fake. You know what I'm saying? It's all in the blood. Just remember that. But anyway, I went a long time tonight, man. Just, you know what I'm saying, just doing the knowledge. And sometimes it just flows like that. Let's see. Now, real quick, I did want to just drop a couple tidbits now. Again, we already talked about how a lot of these old Tsalagi towns, they got taken over by Europeans, and they were some of the most racist places in the country for a long time, man. There's a lot of sundown towns in North Georgia, in Tennessee and all that for a long time, you know what I'm saying? But I want to talk about one particular town, and y'all can do the knowledge on it. There's a town called Arab, Alabama. Again, it's called Arab, Alabama. You know what I'm saying? Why? Old Tsalagi town, right outside of Huntsville. That was a famous sundown town, but it's called Arab, Alabama. Okay? Why would it be called Arab? Why would they name a town Arab, Alabama? These Europeans hate Islam. You know what I'm saying? So why would they name their town Arab, Alabama? Because it's an old Tsalagi town. And the real Arabia is in America. The Moors, that's the real Arabia. You know what I'm saying? That's why we call it Alamassee Arabia. Arab, Alabama. Old famous sundown town. Old Tsalagi Moorish Muslim town. You know what I'm saying? In North Alabama right now. Now, and also, just another interesting note. You know what I'm saying? It said in 1793, a Shawnee, this happened in Chickamauga, Turkey, but a Shawnee delegation stopped in Houston, which is was one of the old Cherokee Tsalagi towns in North Georgia, the old capital town. And they wanted to call on the Muskogee and the Choctaw to punish the Chickasaw. You had some Chickasaw that wanted to join St. Clair's army up in Ohio against the Northwest Confederacy, which was the Moors of Ohio. The Northwest Confederacy was allied with the Chickamauga and the Miccosukee in the South. It's all the 5. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure the Chickasaw, I said the Chickasaw that was messing with St. Clair, they was probably the 6. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. It is what it is. It's a little disagreement, but because again, don't the United States wear blue, but all the so-called British Allied Confederates, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Midwest Confederacy, they was all red because they was with Britain. Again, it's red and blue. It always has been. But anyway, they wanted to punish the Chickasaw for joining St. Clair's army. Now, St. Clair is famous for getting towed up by the Midwest Confederacy And the Battle of Wabash, I think in 1793 or 1794, the United States got destroyed by the Midwest Ohio Confederacy, the Moors up in Ohio in 1794. I mean, they literally got destroyed. You know what I'm saying? To the point where George Washington had St. Clair. He made General St. Clair. He forced him to resign because they got beat so bad by the Moors in Ohio around the time of 1793. You know what I'm saying? And research the Battle of Wabash. We might do a drop about that in the future, but I just thought it was interesting that they had a thing named Saint. His name was St. Clair. Now we talking about Ohio and the Shawnee, right? What Bone Thug, any old Bone Thugs fans. I mean, I'm showing my age, but I grew up listening to Bone Thugs. I grew up in the Midwest, so don't Bone Thugs always holler St. Clair? The name of their street in Cleveland was St. Clair. You know what I'm saying? Now that literally is named after this guy St. Clair, who got destroyed by the Midwest Ohio Moslems back in like around 1793. I just thought that was real interesting. You know what I'm saying? It's funny how things kind of come full circle. And a lot of the hits have always been here about the real culture. Because again, if you look at them Bone Thugs brothers, them brothers are straight up Indians. You know what I'm saying? Ohio Indians. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting that they will holler St. Clair when their ancestors probably participated in the destruction of St. Clair's army back in 1793. But it's just interesting. But anyway, tapping in live from Arabia, Sheekamauga Alamassee-El, repping for the Red Chief, Chickamauga Tsalagi, the real Tsalagi. Again, stand on your square, be a Mo, rep the cause, and really be American. But tapping in live, I'll tap back in with y'all later. Peace.